Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
All right, let's go. It is Friday, December 12th, 2025. It's Spathon with another episode of The Swamp, the final one of the week. Today, President Trump honored the 1980 men's U.S. Olympic hockey team, which was comprised of men with no professional hockey experience, and they went on to defeat the highly experienced USSR hockey team. And the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, they announced they are suing 4 additional states over their refusal to overturn their voter rolls. And the Washington Post, of all places, they've praised the Department of Justice for rolling back woke DEI policies under Attorney General Pamela Bondi. And another modern progressive liberal woman announced she will be running for Senate in New Hampshire, and she has a history of extreme anti-Israel stances. The Trump administration announced that 18,000 Amtrak workers will be receiving a $900 bonus, claiming the bonuses can be easily paid out because it won't be coming from additional federal money or Amtrak money, and therefore the bonuses are budget neutral. The Department of Transportation, the Secretary Sean Duffy, announces that 53% of commercial driver's licenses issued from the state of New York were given out illegally, and New York refuses to verify that these CDL holders are citizens or legal residents. And the U.S. Coast Guard cutter James just returned to port after 92 days at sea, where they spent their time seizing narcotics from narco-traffickers. Over 46,500 pounds of narcotics were seized, and 33 traffickers have been detained. And there's a lot more happening, so we're going to jump straight in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like if you have a second, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the daily updates of the federal machine. And I might just read your comment on the next episode if you decide to drop one. And also, any article that you'll see throughout the video will be linked directly in the description. And we will get started right here with the White House. President Donald Trump honors the 1980 Miracle on Ice U.S. men's hockey team. During the height of the Cold War, the Americans fielded a roster with no Olympic or professional experience and defied overwhelming odds by defeating the dominant USSR. And here we go. He's going to honor the members of the team.
This was one of the greatest moments in the history of U.S. sports. I wouldn't say maybe for other countries they weren't so thrilled, but for U.S. sports. And we have a very exciting team of champions standing behind me. Mr. Attorney, could you read what we're doing right now and get it done?
This is H.R. 452, the Miracle on Ice bill. The United States Congress has authorized 3 medals to be struck commemorating the historic victory of the United States men's hockey team in 1980 at the Lake Placid Olympics, where they obviously defeated the Russians or the Soviet Union, in the famous Miracle on Ice hockey game. This will serve as a fitting commemoration of that incredible achievement, and will hopefully be a lasting memorial of that achievement going forward. So.
This was an amazing event. Pretty big, I don't know. There were some other upsets in the world. I haven't noticed them getting any of these, right?
I mean, Trump is a sports fan, right?
That's great. We don't use auto.
Not sure if President Trump likes hockey, but I know he's into sports.
It's a great achievement. Okay, wait a minute. There you go, Mike. Take that.
Thank you, sir.
New coins getting minted of the 1980 men's U.S. hockey team. All right, very cool. I didn't see the game. I wasn't alive yet. Not to say that you can't see the game. I'm sure that game's probably on YouTube right here somewhere. I'm sure it's around on here somewhere. But, yeah, I haven't seen it before. I do enjoy hockey. I'm a Tampa Bay Lightning fan because I live in St. Pete, so I'm in Tampa Bay. So, it just kind of comes with the territory. But anyway, yeah, that was pretty cool. Not so sure why they were all wearing cowboy hats. I don't know if that might have been around the same time that Trump was signing relief for the farmers. I know he was signing executive orders with regard to that this week, so I don't know if that was related or not, or if maybe they just all for, just by some crazy-ass coincidence, they all just happen to like to wear cowboy hats, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, AAG Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General. Happy Friday from the Justice Department and the Civil Rights Division. They have sued 4 additional states for not handing over their voter rolls, bringing our total to 18 states that they're currently suing, because they're refusing to hand over their voter rolls, which I believe is federal law. They have to. I mean, it's all public information anyway, as far as I understand. So if states refuse to fulfill their duty to maintain clean voter rolls, we will, thanks to Texas and other cooperating states. North Carolina, they were a little late to the game, but they did eventually decide to cooperate, and they're handing over all of their voting rolls as we speak. And anyway, so we'll take a quick look at this from justice.gov. They might make a mention of North Carolina, but at least we'll get the 4 states here. It looks like it's going to be Colorado, Hawaii, Massachusetts, and Nevada, all blue states. I mean, although Nevada's a blue state, isn't it? I think it kind of teeters between one or the other. But I'm trying to remember back to the 2024 map. I think it's it's a blue state. I'm pretty sure it's a blue state. Of course, I'm sure it wasn't much of a blue state until they started expanding the hell out of Las Vegas. So anyway, today the Justice Department Civil Rights Division announced it has filed federal lawsuits against those 4 states for failure to produce their statewide voter registration lists upon request. This brings the Justice Department's nationwide total to 18. The Federal Rights Division is also suing one locality, Fulton County, Georgia, for records related to the 2020 election. Quote, states have the statutory duty to preserve and protect their constituents from vote dilution, said Assistant Attorney General Harmeet K. Dillon of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. Quote, at this Department of Justice, we will not permit states to jeopardize the integrity and effectiveness of elections by refusing to abide by our federal election laws. If states will not fulfill their duty to protect the integrity of the ballot, we will. According to the lawsuits, the Attorney General is uniquely charged by Congress with the enforcement of the National Voter Registration Act, the NVRA, and also the Help America Vote Act, which is HAVA, which were designed by Congress to ensure that states have proper and effective voter registration and voter list maintenance programs. The Attorney General also has the Civil Rights Act of 1960, the CRA, at her disposal to demand the production, inspection, and analysis of the statewide voter registration lists. Very good idea. They should be doing this every single year. The Department of Justice, like no matter what, no matter who's in charge, this should be an annual thing for there to be, whether if it's an audit or whatever it might look like. I mean, it's kind of despicable, disgraceful, and downright scary, really, on some levels, that it even has to get to the point where they have to sue for this information. This should have just been the status quo all along. It's absolutely crazy that there's 18 states in our country that are refusing to hand over their voter rolls, because why would they do that? It's almost as if they've got shitloads of people who are on the voter rolls who are not legally allowed to be on those voter rolls. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how that plays out. Hopefully they're going to get to the bottom of that very soon, and it's not going to be some stupid circumstance that plays out in the courts year after year. It's already laws on the books. I mean, this shouldn't even be any argument whatsoever. I mean, what are the states arguing? No, we can't. I mean, I honestly, I would like to know their legitimate legal arguments. They're being sued by the Department of Justice, so they're going to have to appear in court. And I would love to know what each of those 18 states' excuses are for not handing them over, when the Department of Justice just cited 3 different federal laws that legally forces them to have to release those voter rolls, and they're just not doing it. All right, anyway, Dan Bongino, we are hunting down the members of the 764 network with unprecedented arrest numbers and a tireless focus on developing new investigative leads with our state, local, and global law enforcement partners. And by the way, Dan Bongino, he's the deputy director for the FBI, in case you didn't know. And he finishes up with saying, we will not allow them to target our children. You cannot hide behind a keyboard. Yeah, the 764 network, it's a child predator network, online based. They've arrested, I believe it's into the thousands of people at this point. They've arrested tons of people already, and they've been working on it all year. And moving on to Attorney General Pamela Bondi. Today, the Justice Department filed a new mandamus petition in the D.C. Circuit to stop Judge James Bosberg's lawless judicial activism and defend the president's agenda. His latest order threatens attorney-client privilege and the separation of powers underpinning our government, all because this administration dared to remove Venezuelan Tren de Aragua terrorists from this country, which that is a foreign terrorist organization, by the way. So, you know, I would say not that the federal government would really need that designation to have to remove illegal immigrants from the country, but I I mean, that's just all the more reason and all the more authority that they have to remove all these assholes. So anyway, this radical, retaliatory, unconstitutional campaign against the Trump administration will not stand. So we'll see where that goes. And this is from Caroline Levitt 9 hours ago. The Washington Post praises Pam Bondi for rolling back woke racial element at DOJ and slams bogus criticism of the move. And interestingly, they didn't tag the Washington Post. For some reason, they decided to go with Fox News. You'd think that they would have, they're citing the Washington Post, praising the Washington Post for their reporting, yet this ain't the Washington Post. So, okay. Let's see, what's this video of? Suspected National Guard shooter will be held accountable. Okay, all right, so that's not related. So anyway, the Washington Post editorial board praised U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi Wednesday for rolling back a woke doctrine at the Department of Justice. The board's column defended Bondi's move, saying that the legal doctrine of disparate impact she dismantled had encouraged institutions that receive DOJ grants to have a problematic focus on race. Quote, but if a future Democratic administration wants to recommit to woke politics, it will still have many tools at its disposal, the board wrote. One of them is the legal doctrine of disparate impact, which encourages companies, universities, and state and local governments to fixate on race and ethnicity to a fault. The Post explained how disparate impact stretched the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and its target of intentional discrimination to the point of incoherence. It says that different average outcomes among groups, even if there was no intent to discriminate, can still be a civil rights violation. Institutions that receive Justice Department grants have been regulated according to this standard, prohibited from doing anything that has the effect of creating disparities among groups, the board said. In Bondi's document rescinding the doctrine, she argued that it had subjected DOJ grant recipients to penalties under Title 6, I think. Title 6, right? I'm not very good with Roman numerals, but I think that's the 6th of the Civil Rights Act, even for unintentional disparate outcomes, which the recipient may not even know about without investigation. As the Post noted, this previous framework would encourage certain institutions to classify their employees and students based on race and, in some cases, impose racial preferences to meet quotas to avoid quote-unquote unequal conditions. Now, in some cases, maybe in some cases, but this isn't new to anybody. Everybody pretty much at this point is aware that not only the DOJ or any companies, entities, institutions that are tied to the DOJ, it's not just them. It's become a widespread thing, especially after the whole COVID thing started. They really ramped that up, especially under the Biden administration, and they were hiding behind the diversity, the equity, the inclusion. We just want equity for everyone. But instead, what they were actually doing is imposing racial preferences, and that's illegal. So anyway, in some circumstances, those preferences were mandated, the editorial board said. The Post added Bondi's quote that the doctrine seems to both forbid and require the same conduct. Yeah, exactly. It's against the law to do it, but they're making it, as far as the whatever company that's quote unquote mandating those preferences, they're forcing, I guess it'd be HR really, like whichever area of the company that's in charge of hiring and firing, HR for the most part. It's forcing them to choose based on skin color, but at the same time, they're forbidden by federal law for doing just that. But they were doing it anyway. And it's not just corporate America. They're doing it in the university system too. There's a whole bunch of Ivy League schools and probably state level universities that were getting sued, and they lost time and time again. I think Harvard's the most notable one, where they were forcing Asian students to score higher on the SAT than any other race of students because, well, we don't want too many Asians coming to Harvard, which is absolutely insane, but whatever. So anyway, Bondi's move followed President Donald Trump's executive order in April mandating the elimination of the use of disparate impact liability in all contexts to the maximum degree possible to avoid violating the Constitution, federal civil rights laws, and basic American ideals. Trump's order said disparate impact holds that a near insurmountable presumption of unlawful discrimination exists where there are any differences in outcomes in certain circumstances among different races, sexes, similar groups, even if there is no facially discriminatory policy or practice or discriminatory intent involved. and even if everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. The Post editorial board also rebuffed critics who claim that Bondi's directive somehow opens the door for more discrimination. Quote, claims that these revisions somehow authorize discrimination are bogus. They do the opposite. Purposely treating one group differently than another remains illegal, as it should. Amen. And the board added, intent matters. Otherwise, the federal government has a free-floating license to zealously police the racial composition of private institutions. Some of the Trump administration's anti-woke agenda has been irresponsible, but this is a reasonable correction to past overreach. When asked for comment, a DOJ spokesperson pointed Fox News Digital to a press release on Bondi's order. A portion of it stated, quote, the department's new rule reflects the best reading of Title VI, as the Supreme Court has repeatedly recognized for over 20 years. Title VI has and will continue to prohibit intentional discrimination. The department's new rule ensures that recipients of federal funding will be judged on their actual conduct, not on statistical outcomes or circumstances beyond their control. Absolutely. And that's the way it should always be. So it's actually kind of nice seeing that coming out of the Washington Post of all places. I mean, that would have been one of the last places I would have expected, those stances to come from. So good for them. That's a rare, very rare occasion that I can actually applaud the Washington Post for something. Maybe a first ever. All right, so Brian Steele, peace through strength works. It's pretty simple, straight, get to the point.
This is a spectacular National Defense Authorization Act that really moves our country forward in a period of time that's incredibly dangerous, where we're seeing a rising China threatening Taiwan, Russia continue to be engaged in their unjust war against Ukraine, and then broader challenges, for example, throughout the Middle East, where Iran continues to be a threat. And so the faster we put this in place, the sooner we're going to have the modern military we need to continue to lead and defend ourselves with peace through strength policies.
Peace through strength, modern military, $900 billion. Technically, it's $901 billion for the defense spending for fiscal year 2026. That's a lot of money, man. We're almost at $1 trillion a year that we're spending on the military, which is, it's absolutely crazy, man. That's almost the exact same amount of money as the amount of interest we have to pay on the national deficit each year. And by we, that would be the American taxpayer. We have to pay $1 trillion a year on interest on the debt. So basically, if we threw $1 trillion at the interest, it doesn't move it by a single dime, like not at all. And it just keeps ticking up and up. The more the national deficit creeps up, the more interest rate, or the more interest money we're going to have to pay year after year. Okay, moving on to Rep. Frank Pallone, Democrat, from 8 hours ago. We should be working together to foster innovation and protect Americans' privacy and safety, not punishing states for trying to protect people from the harms of AI. Someone should probably tell the president that executive orders aren't magic wands that suddenly erase laws on the books. His AI executive order is both unlawful and counterproductive. Well, dude, you're the lawmaker, so shouldn't you be codifying some federal AI law? And they're not exactly doing that. The reason why President Trump is signing this executive order is because he doesn't want to see 50 states with 50 different regulations with regard to AI, and any national company or maybe an international company who's using AI tools, they don't want to have to go and get 50 different approvals from 50 different states. And what if the blue states are like, no, you can't do this and do that, and then the red states say, well, that looks fine, but you can't do this, can't do that, and it's just going to tie up AI innovation. At least that's from the president's point of view. So anyway, the New York Times, looks like that was posted, yesterday at 7:30 p.m. So breaking news, Trump signed an executive order to neuter state laws, placing limits on the AI industry. The order is likely to be challenged in courts by states and consumer groups, experts said. Well, yeah, of course it's going to be challenged. But you know what? Trump shouldn't even have to do this anyway. The Congress, they should be very busy right now trying to codify federal law with regard to AI, because we've got, I would say, trillions of dollars at this point being dumped into the AI industry. It's booming. It's ramping up extremely quickly. So again, like having a whole bunch of different state level laws with regard to AI, it is counterproductive. It's going to, if it's going to neuter anything, it's going to neuter the growth of AI, really. All right, so this comes from the New York Times. I'm assuming it's going to paywall me because I think that's what they do. And I'll be surprised if they don't. Yeah, of course they do. So, as always, I'm going to try my one single workaround that I have. And if this doesn't work, then I'll try to Google the same title and see if another news outlet published it. And I'm probably going to get hit with it. Yeah, of course I am. So let me see if I can find it somewhere else. And let's see. It looks like I got quite a few to choose from. Got CNN, NPR. You know, it's Google. I Googled it, so it's going to be left wing, left. Oh well, this is from the White House. I mean, being that I'm doing the swamp, that seems pretty fitting. So ensuring a national policy framework for artificial intelligence. So let me just take, this was yesterday, or at least a day ago. This is probably going to be it. So by the authority, yeah, okay. So this is going to be the executive order itself. Definitely looks quite lengthy. Does it at least have an introduction, or is it just, it probably just gets straight to the nitty gritty, doesn't it? Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'll just link this directly into the description. And let me do this. Let me just open a new tab. And I think I got my eye on this CNBC one. I think I'll just go with this one. So Trump signs executive order for single national AI regulation standard limiting power of states. President Trump signed an executive order issuing single regulation framework for artificial intelligence. Alongside the president for signing were David Sachs, the White House AI and crypto czar, and fellow tech investor and podcaster Chamath Palihapitiya. I have no idea how to say his name, obviously. So the move marks a win for tech companies that have lobbied to limit the power of states when it comes to regulating AI. President Trump signed that executive order on Thursday, and it's going to be undermining the power of individual states. Quote, to win, the United States AI companies must be free to innovate without cumbersome regulation, the order says, but excessive state regulation thwarts this imperative. The Trump administration, with the aid of AI and crypto czar David Sachs, has been pursuing a path that would allow federal rules to preempt state regulations on AI, a move meant to keep big Democratic-led states like California and New York from exerting their control over the growing industry. I mean, it seems fair, especially if well, hell, even regardless of where all these AI data centers are springing up, even if they're almost exclusively just in those two states, those aren't the only two states that are going to be using it. I mean, it's going to be a national endeavor, or it already is, has been. So Sachs, a fellow tech investor and podcaster, Chamath, I'm just going to say Chamath, stood beside Trump during the signing in the Oval Office. He was also joined by Senator Ted Cruz, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. The move marks a win for tech companies like OpenAI and Google, and venture firm Andreessen Horowitz that have lobbied to limit regulations they view as overly burdensome. AI companies have been opening offices close to the Capitol and launching campaigns through a super PAC with at least $100 million to spend on the midterm elections in 2026. I'm highly against that. I think that's absolute bullshit. They shouldn't be doing that at all. See, that's why they got to get rid of lobbying. They have to metaphorically nuke K Street. Get rid of it. Get rid of all the lobbying. It's not like yeah, I get that they want certain regulations to be passed or whatever, but it should be regulations most beneficial to the American people, not to the likes of fucking Google, OpenAI, and Andreessen Horowitz, and whoever the hell. So anyway, proponents of a federal rule have argued that different regulations across the country would hinder the U.S. in its effort to compete in the global AI race. A draft version of a proposed executive order surfaced last month for a single federal standard on AI, quote, instead of a patchwork of 50 state regulatory regimes, end quote. A proposed 10-year ban on states regulating AI was initially included in the Republican spending bill, but was cut out before Trump signed it in July. Trump's executive order also calls for the Attorney General to establish an AI litigation task force, whose sole responsibility shall be to challenge state AI laws. States that don't adhere to the rules could face funding restrictions. The order says that within 90 days of its signing, the Secretary of Commerce must specify the conditions under which states may be eligible to receive remaining funding under the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD program, a $42.5 billion effort to expand high-speed access in rural areas. That is the most retarded thing that I've ever heard in 2025, when we've already got satellite internet, we got Starlink. I'm sure there's another company out there that's already working to compete with Starlink. And for us to spend 42 what is that, like $42,500 million that we're going to spend just rolling out cabling underground all over the country in these rural areas. So basically, like some farms who don't have high-speed internet and there's nobody around them for miles, so they're going to run like a 20-mile fiber optic line or a 20-mile coaxial cable line all the way down to that one single farm, like 20 miles worth of probably digging a trench. No, they probably would just string it up with the power lines if they even get power from the grid. It's a ridiculous use of money when instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars just trying to run lines to individual properties that are out in the middle of nowhere, they could just buy like a $200 dish and just get freaking Starlink, and they'll spend like, I don't even know what it is now. I know it was $80 at some point, but I think I saw an advertisement recently where Starlink's now $60 a month or whatever. But oh no, that's only going to make evil big bad Elon Musk a lot richer. So not that there's no other companies out there that are working to compete with Starlink, because I'm sure there's something. It wouldn't surprise me. All right, whatever. RNC Research. Hey, jackass. Here's the full quote. Let's see, quote, I like our chances in the midterms, but let me put it in perspective. Only 3 times in the last 100 years has the incumbent party been successful winning a midterm. And that's, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's problematic, but that is something we're facing. Well, the Republicans are facing at least, so we're facing almost certain defeat. The only person who could bring the nose up and help us win is the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. So this is the video, and they're responding to this dude, Sam Stein. I'm not familiar with Sam Stein, or am I? I don't think so. MSNBC, yeah, I don't watch MSNBC, so the name sounds vaguely familiar. But anyway, he says, wow, I have never seen a party committee chair so openly say his party is doomed in the midterms. And then he links this the bulwark.com article. But let's get back to the video, because the RNC Research, they're correcting his statement, and they're saying that, no, you didn't read the entire quote. That's the entire quote, and we've got the video to share.
Listen, I like our chances in midterms, but let me put in perspective. Only 3 times in the last 100 years has the incumbent party been successful winning a midterm. Wow. 4 times in the last 150. We're facing almost certain defeat. The only person that could bring the nose up and help us win is the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Right. He has the most popular
That's
ideas.
not necessarily true at all.
His vision. And I think by the time
Republicans need to get their ground game
with the
going.
Midterm convention or other items, I think you're going to start. People will understand and realize all the good that he's doing. And besides the fact that from the affordability, mortgage prices have been down. Yep. Their lowest level since
barely.
Office. Gas prices
not nearly down enough.
$3.
I mean, yeah, gas looks good. Look, another thing that's going to go, I mean, egg prices, yeah, people have largely forgot about that. Yeah, eggs were like, damn near like $12 a carton, like probably around this time last year. I mean, yeah, but gas definitely going to look good if Republicans run on that, if they continue reminding Americans of that, especially if it just gradually keeps going down and down, at least until the midterms. But I think one of the biggest things that they're going to be able to pick up and run with is tax time, because the whole no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, plus there's a lot of relief in taxes on a whole slew of different things that they passed with the bill back on July 4th, the one big beautiful bill. So I think Americans getting a lot more money back on their tax returns, even if it's not even a lot of money, if it's just a noticeable amount of money, I think people are going to look at that and be like, oh, wow, man, that's really cool. Like Trump actually did come through. So that's going to be one thing. I know the anti ICE violent rhetoric that they've been ramping up, all that propaganda, it's become somewhat effective with regard to pollsters. They claim that more Americans are dissatisfied with what the Trump administration is doing with getting rid of illegal immigrants, and it's because the mainstream news is just constantly just blasting immigration and customs enforcement and just the Trump administration in general with regard to that. Every time that there's something, like if somebody is absolutely obstructing law enforcement, standing in the middle of the road, and then they have to eventually tackle them to the ground because they're being defiant, you've got the progressive leftists out there filming. They're like, oh my God, they're arresting innocent Americans. So, all that bullshit.
Down, 66%. soybeans this weekend, like I just mentioned. He every single day is going to bat for us. So he is going to continue to do everything he can to make it more affordable for the average everyday American out there. And I think it will pay huge dividends in the midterms.
Visiting with Joe Gruden.
It very well could. It very well could. And it may not just be the progress that Republicans are making. Not only that, but just how chaotic the Democratic Party appears to be, which they definitely have, especially from those who are paying close attention to that. But with regard to the economy, it's the bigger picture. We're not going to see, these massive factories going up, the $600 billion that Apple has invested. We're not going to see that come to fruition before the midterms. I mean, that's going to be a multi-year process. The same with like LG, and then also auto manufacturers. There's a whole bunch of different companies have invested into the U.S. Pharmaceutical companies, that's another one. I mean, I think they collectively invested something like $500 billion into bringing back pharmaceutical production to the U.S. So that's definitely going to look good in the long run. Plus with energy, but I don't think that our electric bills are going to drop substantially before the midterms. But still, I mean, they just got to keep up with the messaging and just keep showing the obviousness of how chaotic the Democratic Party has really become. I mean, the only messaging they really have is Trump bad and Trump's even worse, and big bad Republicans, and trying to blame all of their faults on the Republicans, such as Obamacare. Why they keep calling it the Republican healthcare crisis. So, but I get it. The pendulum, it swings to the right, swings to the left, especially with the midterms. Not nearly as many people vote during the midterms as they do during the presidential election. That's why I think Republicans have to really ramp up their ground game. But for whatever reason, it's just not nearly as effective, it seems, as Democrats tend to be. So, all right. Anyway, we'll move on to Senate Republicans. Meet Karishma Manzoor, an extreme anti-Israel liberal running for Senate in New Hampshire. Her website features an anti-Israel page. Last month, she hosted a Gaza town hall. And this week, she attacked Chris Pappas for sending money to Israel. Care to comment? Chris Pappas of New Hampshire. And I'm not sure if this is on her website. I'm just going to assume that it is. But it says, enforce U.S. law and end U.S. complicity in the genocide of Palestinians. The ongoing military assault on Palestinian people in Gaza, fueled by weapons largely supplied by the United States, has devastated food systems, destroyed water and energy infrastructure, and overwhelmed what's left of the medical facilities. Famine conditions are now present in Gaza. Children, pregnant women, the elderly, and the injured are among the most vulnerable. Many are dying from hunger and preventable illness. Tragically, too many Congress members, including members of New Hampshire's delegation, have failed to speak out or take meaningful action to stop this humanitarian catastrophe. Here in New Hampshire, many of us face our own struggles: unaffordable housing, childcare shortage, low wage, and a collapsing healthcare system. Okay, well, if that's the case, if you got all those struggles happening in New Hampshire, why are you even given that much effort into Gaza? Since you're running for New Hampshire, do you think that maybe she should have put that paragraph up here at the top? I mean, I don't know why Gaza is your number one, talking point when you've got things at home to worry about, but that's your modern Democrat for you. Our problems aren't disconnected from violence abroad. The corporate greed and the political corruption that fuels endless wars thousands of miles away are the same forces holding families back here at home. Well, there's also Hamas. I mean, that's kind of an issue too, that the Palestinians, they elected Hamas to run the government, and they just never relinquished power. They just held on to it since the early 1990s, ruling over them and withholding food and God knows what else they were doing. I mean, I'm really ignorant when it comes to that, but I think I at least got some of that right. So so this is a post from her, I'm assuming it's from her X account. I see the little Grok logo. So she says Netanyahu should be prosecuted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And U.S. lawmakers should be investigated for aiding and abetting genocide by a foreign government. The lawmakers are not immune from prosecution under U.S. law and international law. So, all right. Anyway, New Hampshire, what the hell? If you elect her, what the hell? All right. RNC Research, another one. In 2022, Hakeem Jeffries voted to let Obamacare subsidies expire at the end of this year. So he actually voted for the expiration. But I get what it's the way that they're framing it. So he passed the Obamacare subsidies back in 2022. But what they're saying with him voting to allow it to expire was that Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats, they voted to extend the Obamacare subsidies, and they used COVID as their excuse. Well, we're still in the COVID era, so we have to give more relief to everyday Americans who are struggling to pay their health insurance. So they extended it by 3 years. And it was the Democrats, it was Hakeem Jeffries, who put the 3-year clock on it. It wasn't 5 years, 10 years, it was 3 years. So basically, I mean, they're not wrong. He actually did vote to pass that legislation, and it did have an expiration date, which is at the end of this year. So anyway, now he's gaslighting you because he thinks you're too dumb to notice. Democrats are panicking because they know they created this healthcare crisis.
Tens of millions of folks are about to experience, as you indicated, dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles if these tax credits expire. But Democrats in the House, together with our partners in the Senate, led by Chuck Schumer, have spent months now dramatically raising this issue and the stakes so that the public knows that Congress needs to act. And if Congress doesn't act, it's the Republicans' fault who have failed to protect the health care of the American people. Tens of millions of...
Oh, it's always the Republicans' fault, Hakeem Jeffries. Nothing's ever his fault. It's always the Republicans. Oh, my God. All right, Rep. Scott Peters, another Democrat from December 11th. And he says healthcare tax credits are set to expire for millions of Americans, yet Senate Republicans just blocked efforts to extend them. 28,000 people in my district alone will see their healthcare costs rise if Republicans continue to sit on their hands. This is unacceptable. Congress needs to act now. And so I asked Grok a question. Has the cost of health insurance been rising year after year since Obamacare was passed? I haven't looked at this yet. Yes. Average U.S. health insurance premiums have risen each year since the Affordable Care Act passed in 2010. For employer-sponsored plans, single coverage increased from $4,940 in 2010 to $7,380 in 2021, with annual growth of 1.3 to 8.3%, which is from MEPS data. Family coverage followed similar trends. Individual market premiums also grew yearly, though rates moderated initially post-ACA. Recent years show sharper rises, 26% in 2026 Affordable Care Act plans. And it's because those Obamacare subsidies that they passed in 2022, it was masking the sharp increase that we were facing. It's almost as if Democrats put that 3-year timeline on purpose, or they did it as a personal insurance policy. So if Trump were to win, we could just pin it all on the Republicans and just essentially strong arm them into passing it, because if not, it's going to go up 26%, and we could just blame the Republicans for it. But if Kamala Harris won, all they would do is just simply extend it another 3 years, and then another 3, and another 3, and on and on and on. So, okay, so let's see. He also tagged Politico. Breaking: the Senate rejected dueling healthcare bills, virtually guaranteeing Obamacare subsidies will lapse for over 20 million Americans. And let's see, we've got that from Politico. And of course, I'm sure there's some entertaining comments. You mean guaranteeing that the other 320 million Americans won't have to subsidize 20 million deadbeats? So if Obamacare is so affordable, why does it have to be subsidized? Exactly. I mean, that's the main problem. Lapse liberal bias narrative hoax. Great news, get government out of the healthcare industry. Yeah, that would be nice. Virtually, LOL, so much drama. I I definitely agree with that. Like, the government has no business at all being in the healthcare industry, and now we know why. And we should have already seen that the alarm bells from places like Canada, where if you have a heart issue, or if you need heart surgery or something, isn't the waiting list for that like 18 months or some shit? So Senate rejects dueling healthcare bills as Obamacare deadline looms. The result virtually guarantees insurance subsidies used by more than 20 million Americans will lapse at the end of the year. But yeah, the Republicans, they did put their bill on the floor yesterday. It failed. There was one Republican who voted against. Of course, all the Democrats voted against it. And so it just basically didn't pass. I think another Republican voted not present or something like that. But the answer the Republicans had was that they didn't want to take all of that money and hand it directly to the insurance companies. They wanted to put it into healthcare savings accounts for Americans. But the amount of money that they were looking to put into these savings accounts for Americans was only like $1,500. Like, okay, I don't really know if that's really going to fix the problem, Republicans, but all right, that's what they went with, and it was voted down, so that didn't pass. So anyway, yes. Okay, so it looks like they're going to get into that. So let's see. Senators voted 51-48 on advancing GOP healthcare plan that would have expanded health savings accounts as an alternative to the expiring tax credits. And the Democrats' plan to extend the COVID-era enhanced subsidies for 3 years also received a 51-48 vote. Both proposals fell well short of the 60 votes needed to vault a key procedural hurdle. And the votes both went largely, but not entirely, along party lines. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky was the only Republican to oppose the GOP plan. That's no surprise. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine, Josh Hawley of Missouri, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Dan Sullivan of Alaska voted to advance the Democrats' health care plan. Really? Senator Steve Daines, Republican of Montana, who would have voted for the GOP plan, he missed the votes. So Paul said his party's bill, written by Senators Bill Cassidy of Louisiana and Mike Crapo of Idaho, amounted to Obamacare light, while Collins, Hawley, and Murkowski have expressed sharp concerns about allowing the subsidies to expire. So anyway, it goes on from there. And yep, so the problem continues. And I don't know if they're going to go back to the drawing board or if they're just going to try to drop it for another vote. I mean, I was honestly surprised that the Democrats got 4 votes from the Republicans, because even though the Democrats are calling it a clean extension, it's not exactly clean. There's lots and lots of fraud in it. And a number that I saw, that 20% of Obamacare year after year, like 20% of that money goes directly to the insurance companies in the form of profit. And that 20%, it one way or another, either way, it doesn't get used for patient care at all. It's just simply just skimmed off the top. So I'm not sure exactly how true that is, but I did read that somewhere. All right, so Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If Republicans don't extend ACA subsidies, people are going to die. Now they're trying to tie Americans' healthcare to abortion restrictions that kill women. Abortion's killing women. It's absolutely a non-starter. We won't allow Republicans to use the lives of women as the political cost of extension. Look, man, if you don't want to go through the risk of pregnancy, just keep your damn legs closed. I mean, abstinence, dude. I mean, it ain't fucking rocket science. So let me see if I think I actually dropped something in here. Maybe I didn't, but okay, yeah, I did. I said Americans, they've been dying under Obamacare every single day since its inception, which, yeah, I mean, and the point of that is that Americans die every day regardless. AOC, people are gonna die. Yeah, dude, like, what's the rate of death? Isn't it like a person in America dies like every 12 or 15 seconds or something like that? But all right, anyway, let's give this a watch. This ought to be fun.
The Senate and the White House. Republicans have a House majority. They have a Senate majority, and Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and JD Vance is the vice president of the United States.
We know who the fucking president is.
As Democrats, every point of leverage that we've had in this moment to try to demand votes, to try to demand
why is she even talking? She's not even in.
And every single Republican in governance has refused to engage this matter. Meanwhile, people are
we don't like the fraud, dude.
Open enrollment is happening right
Obamacare's
now.
a failure.
And there are going to be millions of Americans that are affected, that aren't going to be able to go to a doctor.
I mean, dude, you just got to ask yourself that simple question. Why in the hell are the premiums going up so much? Why are they going up so much? They're not going up because Republicans are refusing to pass the bill. Republicans are simply saying, we're just going to throw our hands up and just let Obamacare do what Obamacare does. That's exactly what they're doing. The Republicans have not introduced, they haven't passed anything probably since the inception of Obamacare that is causing the Affordable Care Act to skyrocket in cost. Republicans haven't touched this at all. They got Obamacare got 0 votes by the Republicans when it first passed, and when they started throwing subsidies into the system, not a single Republican voted for those either. So this is 100% on the Democrats. And Republicans have just, again, they just threw their hands up and said, look, we're just not even going to touch it. We're not touching it at all. And oh, look at that. Surprise, surprise. The cost of the healthcare is going to go up. What was the number? Like 28% for 2026. That's all through the Democrats. I mean, they could blame Republicans all they want, but Republicans haven't touched the Affordable Care Act in any way, shape, or form.
Aren't going to be able to afford their prescription drugs because of some petty fight in Washington. And I think it is the lack of urgency and the lack of care on this issue is so indicative of how disconnected people are from the real life consequences.
Democrats,
that people are experiencing.
they're disconnected.
People are going to die. And I don't understand
Because
why they
of
can't
Obamacare,
just
lady.
extend these subsidies.
They're going to
so
die
that
because
we
of
can
Obamacare.
save people's lives while they figure out whatever their political food fight is.
Is an extension with
Oh, yeah, because you don't engage in any political food
those
fighting. Yeah, of course not,
abortion
AOC.
restrictions better than no extension at all?
An extension with abortion restrictions kills women.
Oh, my
so,
God.
No, I'm not going
Abortion,
to allow
it
this
kills
Republican
women.
majority to kill women in this country so that they can
Well, then don't
try
get
to
an
do
abortion.
whatever
Just have the kid.
their victory lap is.
And if you're at high risk
will
of
not
having a kid, then
accept
keep your
women
damn legs.
and the lives of women as some political cost for them being able to extend these things. Reproductive care is health care, period.
No, it's
We're
not.
not
It's
going to do
murder.
this thing where we
They're
say,
killing children.
you know,
That's
people
what
can
they're
get
doing.
health
They're in
care,
a
but
cult.
women can't, or people from this geographic
You
place
get an
can't, or
abortion.
that geographic
You get
place
an
can't.
abortion.
We need to legislate as Americans, and we need to legislate for this country. Thank you.
All right, whatever. That was fun. Okay, let's move on to the next thing for freaking crying out loud. All right, Senate Republicans. Democrats passed Obamacare without a single Republican vote. Then they passed Biden's COVID bonuses to mask Obamacare's skyrocketing premiums. That's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they did. And that's why they're trying to extend the subsidies, because they're trying to mask the failures of Obamacare. Listen to this, if they extend those subsidies by another 3 years, what do you think the premiums are going to look like if the subsidies expire again? That's what Democrats want. They want to extend them just another 3 years to the point where it reaches a point of no return. Because if they extend it for another 3 years, they're going to the premiums are going to go up what, like 80% or overnight, maybe 100%. So, you know, like Chuck Schumer is saying, well, there's families in my district, their premiums are going to go up $20,000 a year. Okay, well then if you extend it another 3 years and then it expires after 3 years, then what's it going to be? Their premiums are going to go up what, $120,000 a year? It's just a snowball effect. It just seems like it's just exponentially getting more and more expensive. So extending these premiums or extending the Biden bonuses or the COVID bonuses is arguably the most irresponsible thing that they could possibly think of to do. So, all right. Anyway, okay. So yeah, yesterday they voted to extend the same failed policies that created this crisis. And moving on to Speaker Mike Johnson. Remember when the media lied repeatedly and said that Democrats do not give health care to illegal aliens and didn't want to? Yeah, I remember that. Well, now Gavin Newsom is bragging about doing exactly that. Surely the retractions, the corrections, the apologies, they're coming any minute now. And he got 16,000 likes for that. When was this posted? 9 hours ago. So that was earlier today.
As it relates to undocked healthcare, yeah, I'm proud of that because I believe in universal healthcare.
Oh my God, Gavin Newsom, for fuck's
others
sake,
may
dude.
say it. I did it. First state in the country, regardless of pre-existing conditions, ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status. I promised that. I promoted it. I ran 3 times on it. I did it when I was mayor. People know who I am.
Regardless of immigration status, that means illegals. Illegals are getting the health care. Thanks to Gavin Newsom. Could you imagine listening to that raspy-ass voice for freaking 4 years, man? That'd be a nightmare. Almost would be as nightmarish as listening to Kamala Harris, man. Could you imagine hearing that? Hearing her voice every single day for 4 years? A minimum of 4 years at that? Okay, whatever. So, Homeland Security, 9 hours also. Secretary Noem has been clear. If you lay a hand on a law enforcement officer, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Obstructing law enforcement is not protesting. It is a crime, punishable by up to 8 years in prison. Instead of trying to spread misinformation, Governor Tim Walz should focus on protecting ... American lives and thanking the brave men and women of DHS law enforcement who are risking their lives to make communities in his state safer. There's a growing and disturbing trend of agitators and rioters obstructing the arrest of illegal aliens and assaulting our brave law enforcement. Our officers are facing a more than 1,050% increase in assaults and an 8,000% increase in death threats. And yeah, I've said this before. It actually really shocked me to learn like how little authority that federal agents really have. I thought that a federal agent, whether if they're FBI or if they're U.S. Marshals or even if they're Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I just assumed that if they saw somebody breaking the law, well, they're federal agents. Just arrest them. I mean, regardless of what it is that they're doing. I mean, they've got federal authority, but no, I guess that's not the case. I mean, if somebody in Immigration and Customs Enforcement or maybe Border Patrol agents or something, like if they saw somebody, I don't know, like maybe mugging somebody or shooting up drugs on the street corner, I'm assuming that they don't have the authority to arrest them for that, which I don't believe they do, or else they would be arresting all of these assholes that keep obstructing them, which they still, I believe, still have that authority to do. If they're being obstructed or if they're being assaulted, they can arrest those people. But for whatever reason, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they just give way too many passes. And we see that all the time. There's like a group of like 100 people obstruct an ICE vehicle standing in the middle of the road, refusing to let them pass. Each and every one of them should be rounded up one by one and arrested. But the problem most likely is once they get in front of the judge, they're probably just going to immediately drop the charges and have a nice day. All right, so Governor Tim Walz, they tagged his post in saying multiple U.S. citizens have been arrested during ICE operations. The forcefulness, lack of communication, and unlawful practices displayed by federal agents will not be tolerated in Minnesota. In other words, you can obstruct ICE all you want, and you won't get in any trouble for it. And if you do, we'll just let you go. And I'm not going to read that letter, but what I will do, I'll repost it. So you can open up the description of this video. There's a direct link to my X profile, and it'll be reposted there, or you can just go straight to @GovTimWalz, and he posted this at 6:13 p.m. day before yesterday. That was back on Wednesday, so you might have to scroll a little bit. Not exactly familiar with how often he posts, but it'll be down there somewhere. All right, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Reminder, threatening to assault, murder, or interfere with a federal agent is a felony. Logan Murfin of Tulsa, Oklahoma, has been charged with 10 counts after posting on social media that federal agents need to be gunned down, shot, and executed. Welcome to the find out stage, Logan. And there he is. Dude's going to jail for who knows how long. All right, Scott Turner, facts. 9 hours ago, HUD secretary blames illegal migration for ruining the housing market for Americans. And I mean, he stands by that. That's the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. So I don't believe that's 100% of the problem. I'm sure it's an element of it. I'm absolutely confident and positive that illegal immigration is what skyrocketed the cost of rent. And perhaps that might have been what pushed so many people into competing for buying a house. And that may have driven up the housing prices. So perhaps the millions and millions of illegal immigrants that moved in here and gobbled up all the apartments started pushing people into buying homes, which skyrocketed the cost of homes. So one way or another, yeah, they absolutely contributed to it. That's for sure. So let me see if he actually linked this article or not. And he did. Yay. Way to go, Scott Turner. I'm really glad he did that, because a lot of these officials, they don't do that. They just take a picture of the headline and they just leave it at that. All right. So let's see. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner blamed illegal migration for causing issues for the housing market for low-income Americans. Oh, by the way, it's on ABC News. Quote, the unchecked illegal immigration and open borders policies allowed by the Biden administration continue to put significant strain on housing, pricing out American families, Turner said during an interview with Fox. Turner said that former President Joe Biden's immigration policies have plagued the housing market. Yeah, it was definitely a contributor. HUD recently released a report that stated increased immigration has increased housing prices and that individuals born outside the United States make up 2/3 of rental demand growth. Thank you. I'm glad that he made a mention of that. I didn't know what number that was, but yeah, at least according to him, it's 2/3 of rental demand growth, which, like I said, it probably pushed a lot of people out of renting and, nudged them toward buying, and it only drove up prices further. So he posted here on X, the Trump administration inherited a historic illegal immigration crisis and housing crisis. The former caused the latter. The border is closed and housing supply is increasing. And this was back on December 10th at 9:57, but we'll give this a play.
Let's look at the root of it. You talk about during the Biden administration, the failed immigration policies, and that has really had a tremendous impact on our housing supply and housing affordability. When you have over 12 million people coming over our borders unchecked, unvetted, this is straining our housing market from a supply standpoint, from an affordability standpoint. HUD just put out a report and found that between 2021 and 2024, the foreign-born population in our country in just 3 short years is 6 million people, which is the most in that period of time in American history. And so we cannot forego the thought that because of illegal immigration.
There you go. Regional median home prices. Out west, $628,500. The median. Northeast, $500,000. In the south, $362K. And in the Midwest, $319,000. Still, man, $319,000. Now, let me ask, the average household income, because most of us, those who are married or those who are, living with a significant other, the majority are two-income households. And combined, on average, it's about $80,000. And frankly, that probably also includes single-income households. Just in general, the average household income, so I've read, nationwide, is around $80,000. Can an $80,000 household afford a $320,000 mortgage? Will your average bank approve a mortgage for that amount of money to a family that's only making $80,000 a year? And let me know in the comments, because I'm honestly curious. I haven't looked that up recently. I'm sure I came across that at some point, but I'm not coming up with anything right now. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they would say no. All I know is here, where I live in the Tampa Bay area, for Tampa, you have to be making $106,000 as your household income in order to qualify for the average priced home. Yet the average family in this area makes about $72,000 a year in the household average. So I think that's what a bubble is, isn't it? I think that's what it is. Like when housing costs more than the locals can afford in general. And that's probably why our housing inventory is skyrocketing, at least in this state. I mean, there's other issues. People got scared of the hurricanes, and, a lot of people they got damaged from the hurricanes and all that. And a number of other factors. It gets hot as hell here. A lot of people didn't expect the humidity to be so brutal, but whatever. Anyway, so let's
people coming to our country, prices have risen, supply has been squeezed, but we're working very hard at HUD, along with the president and the leaders in the administration, to bring down the cost and raise the supply when they're doing it through interagencies. But we need the Fed to cut rates. We need to continue to deport illegals that are taking houses from the American people. So we're very intentional and focused about it at HUD.
Holy shit. Look at this. Gold right now is $4,225 an ounce. $4,000 an ounce. So like what, in the last couple of years, it's doubled? Holy shit. Now, I've been paying attention to silver. I know this isn't related, but I just happened to notice that silver's over $60 an ounce right now. And going back to probably 2021, silver was like $15. It's like $15, $16. And I think it was increasing, it was starting to increase fairly rapidly at that point. And right now, it's like $62 an ounce right now. Absolutely skyrocketing. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was like $48. And it's already up to $60. So silver is spiking fast. Now, would I recommend buying it right now? I don't know, because silver spiked. It spiked once before under a completely different circumstance. Somebody was trying to corner the market back then. But gold over $4,000. I'm telling you, a lot of the reason I think is because of this AI infrastructure, because gold and silver, it's used in electronics. Especially silver, because silver is the most conductive metal on the periodic table. So, all right.
Across the
anyway.
administration.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Whatever. I didn't notice how close that was to the end. So, all right. Whatever. I'll just leave this as it is. We got that statement from him, that clip, and we'll just roll on to the next. And let's see where this takes us. To the White House 6 hours ago. Promises made, promises kept. Millions of illegals out of the country. And from Breitbart. Will they link this? Sometimes the White House does, sometimes they don't. So let's see if they just happen to do that this time. No, they didn't. Of course they didn't. So anyway, it says Trump's DHS celebrates record-breaking 2.5 million illegal aliens leaving the U.S. This week, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents had successfully deported more than 605,000 illegal aliens from the U.S. just since January 20th of this year, noting the majority are illegal aliens with pending criminal charges or criminal convictions. So what does that mean? If they've got pending charges, if they haven't gotten their day in court yet, they deported them. So are they just going to call it a wash? Is that what they're going to do? Or are they going to be thrown in jail in the country that they're going to? I'm not so sure about that. Although it's at 2.5 million now. I mean, they were talking 1.6 million back in September and October, and then they probably just a few weeks ago, they finally started stating that 2 million illegal aliens have left, most of which have self-deported, but now they're claiming that it's 2.5 million. And I've got the article right here. So Trump's DHS celebrates record-breaking 2.5 million illegal aliens leaving the U.S. So that'll be linked if you want to take a look at that. We will roll on to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Got one more 6 hours ago. ICE will continue to ensure criminal illegal aliens go their separate ways from America. Let's check out the video. Or maybe not. I'm going to mute that because I'm trying to avoid a copyright, at least for one freaking video. I don't know why they keep playing these videos. Or they keep choosing the music that they're choosing. It's annoying. Sometimes these music artists, they threaten to sue the federal government because I don't think they're getting their permission 100% of the time. I can't remember who it was. There was a musician who threatened to sue. I don't even remember which government agency it was. It might have been a law enforcement agency, but they used a song like this and they didn't get their permission. So, all right, whatever. So just some footage of them just rounding up illegals, getting them arrested, detained, deported. And we'll move on to Secretary Sean Duffy. 7 hours ago, this is exactly why states must comply with the U.S. Department of Transportation's rules. The time is now. And what he's talking about, this is from Bill Milugan. Breaking, I'm told by a senior ICE source that the semi-truck driver arrested in a deadly crash in Washington state yesterday is an Indian illegal alien who was caught and released at the border by the Biden administration. And I'm told that 25-year-old Kamalpreet Singh was arrested by U.S. Border Patrol in Lukeville, Arizona, after crossing illegally into the U.S. on the 24th of December of 2023, but he was released into the U.S. Singh is now facing charges for vehicular homicide after he allegedly crashed into the back of a vehicle on State Road 167 in Washington, crushing it between another truck and killing 29-year-old Robert B. Person. I'm told ICE has placed a detainer with him on local law enforcement in King County, Washington. Note, Singh is not believed to have any relation to two other Indian illegal alien truck drivers with the same last name who are facing their own charges for killing people in crashes in California, which is Jashanpreet Singh, and the one in Florida, which is Harjinder Singh. And the one in Florida, I'm of course familiar with. That was the three people that he killed while he was making an illegal U-turn. And the one in California, that's when he was high on drugs or he was drunk, passed out behind the wheel, and there was stopped traffic in the center lane. He didn't even slow down. He just blasted right into the back of that vehicle, and it caused this like domino effect where it just like it ended up like obliterating like 5 or 6 vehicles. There's footage out there. I showed it on this show when it happened, and it was brutal. All right, so anyway, that's the dude. It's the dude that killed 29-year-old. Let's get his name one more time. Robert B. Parson. And rest in peace, man. Totally uncalled for, unnecessary. Wouldn't have happened if the Biden administration did their effing jobs. All right, Homeland Security, 10 hours ago, USCIS is working to implement the most rigorous screening and vetting protocols in agency history. The Biden administration recklessly accelerated refugee admissions from terror and gang-infiltrated countries, including Somalia, prioritizing sheer numbers over rigorous vetting and strict adherence to legal requirements. Corrective action is being taken by Secretary Kristi Noem of Homeland Security to ensure those who are present in the United States deserve to be here. So let's take a look at this.
Kaplan of CBS News Minnesota has an exclusive look now at how fraudsters spent hundreds of millions in taxpayer dollars.
Well, of course.
Money so well spent. In the Maldives, a fleet of luxury cars. Here's a box with more than $270,000 in cash. This was all evidence from a new trove of files obtained exclusively by CBS News, showing how a group of convicted Minnesota fraudsters spent taxpayer dollars. One text message reads, "You are going to be the richest 25-year-old.
We're not even at the end of the beginning of our
You're going to be an incarcerated
of the stolen money and of the people who stole it.
U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen leads the office digging into the wave of COVID-era fraud that hit Minnesota.
So how much money are we talking about stolen from the American taxpayer?
I can say with great comfort well in excess of $1 billion.
In the past 3 years, 87 defendants have been charged, 61 convicted. The majority of them are Somali American. Minnesota has the nation's largest Somali population. The perpetrators are accused of American. Minnesota has the nation's largest Somali population.
Okay, all right. I believe that the Somali population in Minnesota is something like 20,000, something like that. It's not in hundreds of thousands. It's still a fairly sizable population and the largest, like they said, in the country.
The perpetrators are accused of ripping off state-run programs intended to feed low-income kids, house the disabled,
created fraudulent
and provide
programs,
services to autistic children.
Autism.
This was
there
a
it is.
get-rich
Autism.
scheme.
Andy Luger was the U.S. attorney who first examined this fraud. He left in January.
One of the things we discovered
And the money's
is
going to
that
terrorist
a number
organizations.
Of the people
How do you
involved
like that?
were buying investment property, resort property in Kenya.
Wire transfers
Yeah,
reviewed by
they are doing
CBS
that.
News
That's
also
hilarious.
show more than
They're not
$1
even
million
fucking Kenyan.
went to Chinese banks. The Trump
Launched by resorts
administration
in
has said
Somalia.
it's investigating whether
Oh,
any of the
right.
money fell into the hands of terror groups like al-Shabaab in Somalia.
I told you, terrorist groups. Money's going to terrorism, terrorist organizations. Al-Shabaab, heading over to Somalia. And that is your tax money being spent, especially if you live in Minnesota. I think a lot of that money was state-level tax money that they squandered. All right, Rapid Response 47. This was from yesterday. So, Press Secretary on the war in Ukraine. The president is extremely frustrated with both sides of this war. He doesn't want any more talk. He wants action. He wants this war to come to an end.
The president is extremely frustrated with both sides of this war, and he's sick of meetings just for the sake of meeting. He doesn't want any more talk. He wants action. He wants this war to come to an end. And the administration has spent more than 30 hours, just in the past couple of weeks, meeting with the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Europeans and speaking with them as well. So we'll see about the meetings this weekend, and stay tuned.
All right, that clip wasn't supposed to find its way into this episode. I played this yesterday, so somehow this slipped in, and I already played it, but whatever. It's only a short period of time. Still important, though. All right, so U.S. Mission Geneva. Also yesterday, President Trump is driving reforms to make the UN leaner and more accountable. Secretary General Gutierrez proposed 15% cut to the UN budget and a 19% reduction in Secretariat staff was an important first step. It's time for bold reform. And the UN Secretariat has grown to tens of thousands of employees living in one of the most expensive cities in the world. We're going to cut that back. And that would be New York City, I'm assuming. Yeah, it's in New York City, right? Yeah, it is. All right, U.S. Embassy, Jamaica. From 7 hours ago, the United States is proud to stand with the people of Jamaica as they recover from Hurricane Melissa. We have provided $22 million USD in emergency life-saving foreign assistance, delivered in partnership with international and local organizations working tirelessly to support communities in need, from food, water, shelter, and hygiene supplies to medical care and critical logistics. Our teams are on the ground helping Jamaicans recover. Together, we are helping communities rebuild and emerge stronger. And here's an image that they shared. Hurricane Melissa, U.S. government response in Jamaica, $22 million USD. 4.5 from the to the World Food Program, and what is that? Samaritan's Purse. I think that's it. Anyway, Project Hope, IOM, UN Migration, IFRC, Red Cross, right? I believe so. So UNICEF, and then also $1 million from transportation and Haiti Air Ambulance, $1 million worth. I mean, look, if Democrats were in charge, do you think they would have just put $22 million toward this? No, it'd probably be like up to $1 billion, in which case only $22 million probably would have found its way on the ground, whereas the rest of it would have just been I don't know, flushed down the toilet in the form of bloat, waste, fraud, abuse. Okay, Rapid Response 47, also posted today. What time do we got there? 12:38 p.m. From Donald J. Trump's Truth Social account. He says, I had a very good conversation this morning with the Prime Minister of Thailand, Anutin Charnvirakul, and the Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet, concerning the very unfortunate reawakening of their long-running war. They have agreed to cease all shooting effective this evening and go back to the original peace accord made with me and them with the help of the great Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim. The roadside bomb that originally killed and wounded numerous Thai soldiers was an accident, but Thailand nevertheless retaliated very strongly. Well, I mean, understandably. And both countries are ready for peace and continued trade with the United States of America. It is my honor to work with Anutin and Hun in resolving what could have evolved into a major war between two otherwise wonderful and prosperous countries. I would also like to thank the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim, for his assistance in this very important matter. So that's good. I didn't even hear that even happened, that their peace agreement fell through and they started attacking each other again because some bomb went off. But looks like they got it back under control, at least for now. All right, House Foreign Affairs Committee majority. I played a couple of clips on this issue happening in Sudan. Millions of people being killed. It's being called the most violent region on the planet right now. And I came across this from the same committee's account today when it was posted. So I wanted to share this. It's 7.5 minutes, a little bit long, but I think it's extremely important. And you're probably not going to hear a word of this on mainstream news. So anyway, it reads, violent militias are persecuting Christians in Sudan. Millions are starving. 150,000 have been murdered and 12 million have been displaced. Listen to Tony Perkins. He's the president of FRCDC. He's also a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He's the host of Washington Watch and This Week on Capitol Hill, the former chair of USCIRF, and also the former chair of International Religious Freedom Commission, which they did mention in the bio, on how he thinks Sudan can achieve real peace. Well, let's hear from his perspective.
As Chairman Smith mentioned, I served on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom from 2018 to 2022, served as both vice chair and chair, and I currently serve as president of the Family Research Council, where we care deeply about protecting and promoting fundamental human rights. Foremost among those is religious freedom. And Congress, in part because of your leadership, Mr. Chairman, recognized the strategic importance of this principle when Congress enacted the International Religious Freedom Act in 1998. And research since then has affirmed what RFRA presupposed, that countries that safeguard religious freedom experience greater social stability and in many cases stronger economic performance, conditions that are desperately needed in war-torn Sudan. In 2020, while serving on the USCIRF Commission, I participated in, I think, what is the most recent USCIRF visit to Sudan. During that trip, I met with the transitional Prime Minister, Hamdok, who was, I think, taking meaningful steps to improve religious freedom. And those reforms actually led to Sudan's removal from the U.S. list of countries of particular concern after 20 years. But sadly, the progress we witness has collapsed, and ethnic and religious-driven violence has again engulfed the country. Sudan is once more making headlines for horrific violence, which is driving an international humanitarian crisis. But this current calamity cannot be understood in isolation. Since gaining independence in 1956, Sudan has been plagued by conflict. The danger today is assuming that this problem is new, rather than addressing the deeply rooted drivers of instability. Sudan does not need a temporary pause in fighting. It needs a durable peace that confronts these underlying causes. While the Rapid Support Forces are rightly condemned for atrocities,
usually the case in Africa,
both major armed factions bear responsibility for the violence. The Sudanese armed forces have also committed brutal abuses, including killings and beheadings of civilians. Neither faction represents a credible path toward long-term stability or respect for human rights. Many will recall Omar al-Bashir, who ruled from 1989 to 2019. He created the militias, the predecessors of today's RSF, as instruments of jihadist ethnic cleansing against Christians and African tribes. At that time, the RSF and the SAF, they actually worked together. They only became rivals after the coup that removed al-Bashir. The extremist ideologies and structures that fueled past persecution continue to animate both armed groups today. Although the RSF and the SAF are fighting each other, they share a common hostility toward Christian communities, whom they do not view as fitting their vision for the future of Sudan. Churches have been targeted by both factions. Christians have been denied food, aid, and told, quote, unless you leave your Christianity, no food for you. They and countless Muslims, Africans, and other vulnerable communities are the true victims of this war. Regional actors are further complicating the conflict. The United Arab Emirates, support for the RSF, is well known, but Egypt, Iran, Turkey, and Russia have also sought influence, providing drones, weapons, or economic incentives. Sudan's government recently offered Russia a naval base in Port Sudan, an indicator of the geopolitical stakes. Now, the humanitarian crisis is staggering. Nearly 12 million people are internally displaced, and more than 4 million have already fled the country. Many are now in Chad, Egypt, and South Sudan, nations whose fragile infrastructures cannot sustain this influx. The Nuba Mountains, long vulnerable to both famine and persecution, urgently require aid that is not obstructed nor manipulated by either the SAF or the RSF. Reports indicate that more than 150,000 people have been killed in the conflict over the past few years, and the toll continues to rise. The international community, including the United States, cannot remain passive. Sudan was designated a country of particular concern for religious freedom from 1999 to 2019. After the 2019 transition, meaningful reforms, including the repealing of apostasy laws and improving protections for minorities, led to the removal from the CPC list. Today, however, Sudan has reverted to conditions that meet the statutory criteria for CPC designation under RFRA. The safeguards that once existed have collapsed, and the extremist structures that long persecuted Christians and other minorities are again driving violence. Given this dramatic backsliding, the United States should reimpose the CPC designation and make clear it will remain in place until verifiable improvements in religious freedom and human rights occur. So here are the recommendations. Use the CPC and related IRFA tools to press for human rights and accountability. These designations should inform all U.S. engagement with Sudanese factions and regional actors fueling the conflict. Promote federalism and decentralized governance. The centralized state dominated by one armed group will only perpetuate bloodshed. Empowering regional governance structures is essential for long-term peace. Ensure direct humanitarian access to the Nuba Mountains and other besieged regions. Aid must reach civilians without interference from the SAF and the RSF. And partner with Sudan's churches. I met with many of these religious leaders when I was there. They're very concerned. This is both Muslim, Christian, that are concerned about their communities and willing to engage, and they have credibility. As I close, I just want to offer a reflection drawn from my visit to Sudan. 5 years ago, as I stood in Khartoum at the point where the Blue Nile and the White Nile converge to form the great river that flows north through Africa. Each tributary has its own origin and path, yet they meet, and I stood at the single point that shapes everything downstream. It really is a picture. Sudan stands at such a confluence today. Its troubled history meets a present moment filled with danger, but also with possibility of renewal. What flows from this convergence will determine not only Sudan's future, but also the stability of the entire region. My hope is that the United States will use its diplomatic, humanitarian, and economic tools to help ensure that what flows forward is justice, peace, and genuine freedom for all Sudanese people.
Okay. Well, he said deep forms of peace is what's needed. And what that might look like, I don't know. But hopefully they will get some aid, at least in the short term. And yeah, man, especially with that many that have been displaced. I mean, yeah, I could imagine a place like Egypt, for example. I mean, Cairo's already an enormous city. I'm sure it's like probably really overcrowded at this point. And to have millions of more people moving into Egypt, I'm sure it's problematic, man. I mean, even here in the U.S., dealing with that when our last administration opened up the floodgates, it caused a lot of problems. It causes inflation to go up even worse, and the cost of living in general for everyone, because our system just isn't equipped to handle millions of people just pouring in overnight. And I'm sure that's the case with neighboring countries around the area. So, yep. So hopefully that will be addressed in due time. All right, Christopher Landau. As technology evolves, so 2 must diplomacy. I was generally aware that online scam centers have popped up across Southeast Asia in recent years, but did not appreciate their scale. These are not mom and pop operations where a hacker works out of his parents' basement. For example, the Tai Cheng Scam Center in Burma, which is pictured below, consists of some 95 buildings spread over 41 acres and employs tens of thousands of people. So this is the image that he's sharing. So Tai Cheng Park is this area, and then Khao Khat looks like a neighborhood perhaps, and then the Kin Cheng Park, that might be the area. Actually, probably both of them probably consists of the main scam center. He said 95 buildings. In 2023, the UN estimated that 120,000 people worked in scam centers in Burma alone. They're often fraudulently recruited from other countries, many from China, and coerced into forced labor. This is a major problem for the U.S. and other countries. In 2024, such operations scammed over $10 billion from Americans. Until recently, many of these centers had been operating with impunity, but we're working hard with countries in the region to crack down on them. So the Zone online scam compounds. So they've got just those two that are highlighted. And I mean, that's the border right here between Thailand and Burma. So they've got this big ass scammer center, both of them, that are right there on the border. And it looks like they've excavated the land to build another one. I mean, that's what that looks like to me. It looks like they cleared the land to build yet another scam complex. It's probably what they're working on right now. Okay. And move into U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Got one more from them. Buy gift cards from authorized retailers, not from outside sources. ICE Director Todd Lyons provides you and your loved ones with helpful tips to avoid getting scammed during the holiday season.
We're in the middle of the holiday season, and this is the perfect time for scammers to take advantage of people that are trying to get gift cards to their loved ones at the last minute. Here at ICE, we investigate frauds and thefts just like this. The best way to keep yourself safe this holiday season from gift card fraud is to make sure you buy it from a major retailer, inside their store or on their official website. What you can also do is make sure you get cards that aren't tampered with, that haven't had the PIN number removed, and also, if you can, buy the ones that are behind the counter. Let the cashier help you. If you do receive a gift card this season, you want to go ahead and use that gift card as soon as possible. You also want to make sure you keep that information to yourself. You don't share with any scammers online, or if you get any phone calls. Unless you initiate a call with the retailer, you want to keep that information private.
All right. Or you can just buy a real Christmas present and not cheat by giving somebody a gift card. But I get it, though. I mean, I've done that in the past a few times. You know, there's always somebody that you know that's really hard to shop for. So, but you come to know what it is that they enjoy, whether if it's a restaurant or if it's a store. So it's usually an easy thing to do. All right. Anyway, Eric Daugherty, 10 hours ago, breaking in an incredible Christmas surprise. The Trump administration is sending $900 bonuses to 18,000 Amtrak workers, and the money is coming from cutting top executives' perks. It's budget neutral. We aren't spending more federal money on Amtrak or with Amtrak money. It's taking money from the executives and saying, let's share the bonuses with the mechanics, the operators. Let's give some of it back this Christmas season, Secretary Duffy said. Amazing. This is how it's done. That's incredible news.
All right, let's get to this. Amtrak workers are getting a year-end big thank you bonus. Secretary, your department is sending $900 bonuses to more than 18,000 frontline employees, and it's all paid for by cutting top executive perks. A top transportation union with high praise on this long overdue recognition of the employees who keep the railroad moving is a step in the right direction. Tell me about this and how this came about.
Yeah, so this is fantastic. We have our top executives that were willing to give back part of their bonuses. We took those bonuses and said, well, what do you do with it? Let's give those bonuses back to the frontline union workers who make Amtrak operate. And it was a big number. So, again, $900 coming in this Christmas season. And President Trump said, listen, let's try to lower costs and increase salaries. This is increasing salaries, and it's budget neutral. So we're not spending more federal money or Amtrak money on this project.
Are they taxing bonuses
it's taking
too?
money from
No
the
tax
top
on bonuses.
leaders, the executives, and saying, let's share some of those bonuses with all of the workers, the mechanics and operators who make Amtrak actually operate. Let's give some of the money back to them this Christmas season. And I'm grateful to the leadership for recognizing the work that the frontline workers do, the unions do on Amtrak. And
they
again,
could
I
have
think
given
it's
them a lot more
Christmas,
than $900.
Surprise for Amtrak. By the way,
like
on
$5 grand.
Amtrak, we are going to, we haven't focused there yet. We are going to upgrade the Amtrak experience for the American rider. We have a number of different priorities.
Hey man, I would not kick $900 out of bed. That's awesome. It actually gives me Christmas vacation vibes with Clark Griswold waiting for his Christmas bonus check, and Eddie having to kidnap the executive in order to get that done. And actually, that it's unrelated, but that actually reminds me. Just this morning, I decided to finally go through a stack of Cash for Life tickets. Every once in a while, when I go to the grocery store, they've got those like lottery vending machines now that you can print out a lottery ticket. Well, every once in a while, I get a Cash for Life ticket, and I haven't checked any of them since like back in September. So I went through them this morning, and one of them that I got back on November the 4th, I ended up matching 3 numbers, and I matched the cash ball. Something like only 50 people in the state matched that amount, and it was $100. So I won $100 on the Cash for Life ticket, which is awesome. That's the highest lottery amount that I ever won. Like way back in 2009, I used to play the state lottery, and I picked my own numbers. And I matched 4 out of 6, and it paid out like $76. And at the time, that was up until today, that was the most that I've ever won playing any of the lottery drawing games, which I don't go crazy. I buy 1 ticket here, 1 ticket there. Going back to September, I think I had gotten like 11 or 12 of them. So I just finally went through them this morning and found out that I won $100. So that was pretty cool. I'll probably share a picture of that on my X account maybe tomorrow before I go and I cash it in. So. All right. Anyway, from EIA from 12 hours ago, we forecast U.S. crude oil production will decrease slightly in 2026. I'm sure Trump doesn't want to hear about that, but that's what they're predicting. And the EIA is the Independent Statistics and Analysis from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. It's their official account. They've got the gray badge, which means that they're an official government entity. And this is the image that they shared. U.S. crude oil production by region, 2023 through 26. And this is measured in million barrels per day. So it looks like currently we're like up at around about 11. I think it says 13.6, 13.5 total. Not too familiar with how they got to that number because it's still below the number 12. But anyway, that's what it's showing. 13.5 total. But for 2025, it's saying 13.6. So it's just a very slight decrease, but still a decrease nonetheless. I figured that Trump was all about increasing the production year over year. So maybe I don't know, man. They must know something that the rest of us don't know. But the annual change shown here, 24, 25, 26. So but look, that's measured in like 0% So it's going to go from like 0.38% to 0.12%, something like that. So it's not a big shift. So it's very slight. But I would be looking more for 2027 because they opened up a lot of federal lands for oil production. I believe, namely in Alaska. I think they opened up a large amount of Alaska for oil production. So I would assume probably in 2027, we're probably going to see these numbers go up substantially. And they have an article or a link to something. I'm assuming it's an article. Yeah, or no, it's not an article. It's just the forecast, U.S. crude oil production. And we got this from the White House 5 hours ago. The Trump administration will continue to strictly enforce laws to keep America's highways safe. No one will be allowed behind the wheel of any commercial vehicle unless they are in this country legally, properly trained, and proficient in English. American lives, they depend on it. 9,500 drivers placed out of service for failing English proficiency standards. So to me, that sounds like that the trucking industry is looking for 9,500 truck drivers. So if you were priced out of the industry because too many illegals were undercutting your wages or your I don't know the lingo, like the amount of money that they were offering you per mile to haul loads, whatever the case might be, looks like you might be able to get back into that industry because they got almost 10,000 that they've displaced, the illegals, that is. And this is from Secretary Kristi Noem today. FEMA stands ready to support the communities devastated by the historic flooding in Western Washington. I will continue to activate resources to those affected and bring Americans in crisis to safety. Pray for Washington. And this comes from the governor. Bob Ferguson. I just received a phone call from Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. Secretary Noem informed me that the president signed our request for an emergency declaration. We have also received written confirmation of that emergency declaration. I express my thanks to Secretary Noem on behalf of the people of the state of Washington during this extremely challenging time. More details at our 2 p.m. media availability. Declared December 12th, 2025, from the state for the state of Washington. The incident: severe storms and straight-line winds, flooding, landslides, and mudslides. Damn, dude, that's a hell of a storm. And December 10th was the request date. The incident happened on December 9th. I didn't hear anything about that. That's a hell of a weather event. So designations and types of assistance. The Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, is authorized to provide appropriate assistance for required emergency measures authorized under Title V of the Stafford Act to save lives and to protect property and public health and safety, or to lessen or avert the threat of a catastrophe in the designated areas. Specifically, FEMA is authorized to provide emergency protective measures, Category B, limited to direct federal assistance under the Public Assistance Program at 75% federal funding. This assistance is for Benton, Chelan, Clallam, Grays Harbor, Jefferson, yada yada. I mean, it's all the different counties. And additional designations may be made at a later date if requested by the state and warranted by the results of further evaluation. This is an emergency declaration. Well, it's a good thing that didn't happen during the government shutdown, because Washington, being a blue state, they would have had to eat that one, because during the government shutdown, FEMA had no money. And that's what the Democrats kept, the Republicans kept talking about. They're like, dude, we got to reopen the government because, God forbid, we're still in hurricane season technically. So if some catastrophe were to happen, we don't have any money for FEMA. So everybody's screwed if that were to happen. So, all right, California Republican Party. California drivers pay the highest prices in the nation, not because of big oil, but because Democrats wanted it that way. They did this, and you pay for it every day. We did this, and those are the California Democrats, the demon rats. All right, so Grok, how much is gasoline taxed in the state of California by the California government? And Grok says, as of December of 2025, California's state excise tax on gasoline is 0.612, hold on, I read that completely wrong. I was looking at decimals and not dollars. So it's currently taxed at 61.2 cents per gallon, including additional state fees like underground storage tanks. What? They tax them on the storage tanks? The total state imposed taxes average about 70.9 cents per gallon. Federal excise tax adds 18.4 cents. The sources CDTFA and Tax Foundation. You know what, the Democrats, they would tax the air if they could figure out how to do that. Every breath you take, every time you exhale, there's carbon dioxide in it. It's bad for the earth. You're contributing to climate change. We're gonna have to tax that. But anyway, so I'm not so sure if they actually revisited. I heard rumors that, I'm not sure if it was, I think it was California. They were considering imposing a mileage tax on electric vehicles because they weigh a lot more than standard gas vehicles, and because they're a lot heavier, they tear up the road faster than a standard gas vehicle. Not sure if they actually rolled that out or if they really ended up entertaining that or not, but that wouldn't surprise me. I did read somewhere, if you're thinking about getting a Cybertruck, look into this. I didn't look into this thoroughly, but I heard from someone who has a Cybertruck that every 6,000 miles you have to get new tires on that thing. And it's because they're so heavy and it wears the tires much faster. Supposedly that's the case for regular Teslas too, that the tires, the tread wears out a lot faster than just a standard gas vehicle because the batteries are so damn heavy. Okay, Eric Doherty, this was posted today. I'm sure the rest of these are going to be posted today. Like 95 to 99% of all the posts that I come across are posted same day. I mean, that's the whole idea with this show. I try to keep it as current as possible. All right, so anyway, holy crap. Secretary Sean Duffy confirms 53% of New York commercial driver's licenses were issued illegally. As a result, tens of millions in federal funds will be pulled after 30 days. New York won't even verify if they're in the country legally. They can't speak English, they are foreigners, and etc. That's a majority of the drivers. This is egregious. This endangers Americans. Pull the funds. I mean, you can't help but feel like completely awful for any truck driver who's from New York State, because you know they've been forced out because they They're not going to drive a truck for like, pennies on the dollar. And I mean, I can only imagine like how many New York truck drivers that they've displaced since the breakout of COVID, actually, namely since the Biden administration took over, really.
As we've done this nationwide audit, we found the worst offender, which is the state of New York. 53% of New York's non-domiciled CDLs were issued unlawfully or illegally.
The majority.
Now, what New York does is, if an applicant comes in and they have a work authorization for 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, New York automatically issues them an 8-year commercial driver's license.
What the fuck?
That's contrary to the law. That's one offense.
Wow.
But we also found that New York...
you know what they should do? They should fine them for every single license they issued. There should be some penalty, which they may have to cite something that's already in law for them to be able to do that. But I would say justifiably, they should fine the state of New York like $2,000 for every illegal CDL that they issued, payable to I don't know who, like payable to the Treasury or some shit. I don't know.
Many times won't even verify whether they have a work authorization, they have a visa, or they're in the country legally. So they're just giving 8-year commercial driver's licenses to people who are coming through their DMV and sending them out on American roadways. And again, they're endangering the lives of American families. I don't like that I have to do this, but the law requires me to do this. I'm going to give New York 30 days, because that's what the law requires,
Shouldn't give
to
them any
come
days.
into compliance
Okay,
with the
says 30
rules
days.
that have been long-standing at the Department of Transportation. If they come into compliance, we're going to work with them. If New York refuses to come into compliance, because Kathy Hochul, for some reason, believes that we should have unqualified truck drivers on American roadways, we are going to pull tens of millions of dollars as phase one for the state of New York.
Well, also not to mention.
Nationwide.
Okay, all right, so that was it, right? Okay, so and also not to mention, wouldn't that? I would assume that I believe that they actually do this because oh man, which state was it? There one of the states. It was one of the big states where this exact issue was going on. It was California. Yeah, I believe it was California, but the federal government, the Department of Transportation, they threatened to invalidate those CDLs to the point where if those truck drivers are pulled over outside of the state of New York, they could be arrested for driving without a license or something like that because they can't speak the language. And well, I mean, point being, their licenses were invalidated because they were issued illegally. So I think they should absolutely do that too, in addition of withholding that federal funding. But they did threaten that with California, and then California complied. They had something like 14,000 or maybe 16,000 illegal licenses, which they ended up complying, and they're working with DOT on that. So we'll see. But I mean, why did they even issue those illegal CDLs in the first place? Knowingly issue them, it's because of lack of consequences, because nobody's going to be criminally charged for that. They're not going to lose any money if they comply with it within 30 days. So whatever, man. That's New York. That's Democrats for you, at least modern Democrats. So U.S. DOT rapid response 7 hours ago. Duffy set to yank $73 million in funding unless New York meets deadline on CDL requirements. Washington Examiner, have a feeling it's a paywall. I think it might be because I've clicked on them before. That is unrelated. Okay. No, maybe not. Maybe I was mistaken. All right. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced on Friday the government will withhold millions, $73 million, unless they comply with the commercial driver's license regulation. Signaling the government's intention to intensify scrutiny of foreign-born truckers. I mean, it's not just the foreign-born trucker thing, dude. It's the fact that they're illegally here, many of them, if not most of them, but they can't speak the English. They can't read the road signs. They can't communicate with everyday drivers. They can't even communicate with the police officers if they're pulled over because they can't speak the language. So Duffy gave the state 30 days to comply or lose $73 million. Wouldn't surprise me if New York's like, well, that's just a little drop in the bucket. We don't care about your $73 million. We're just going to keep doing what we want. And then they might move to that next phase where they'll say, okay, well, if any of those drivers are caught driving outside of the state of New York, they're going to be arrested. So What New York does is if an applicant comes in and they have a work authorization. Okay, so we already heard this, and it's paywalling me anyway, so whatever. I'll go ahead and just link that. But this comes from the NNSA. NNSA Aerial Measuring System is a fleet of aircraft that responds to nuclear incidents and accidents. An element of the Nuclear Emergency Support Team, NEST, it can respond anywhere in the U.S. AMS gives decision makers data to protect public health. It's just yet another arm of the government that I've never heard of. So check out this video. So what, they're just flying around, trolling around, looking for nuclear radiation, I guess? Maybe an accident that somebody's not reporting? I mean, I get that they're on call. Okay, they'll be standing ready with our tax money. All right, not sure how much that's going to cost, but we're about to find out. At Grok, how much does the NNSA's aerial measuring system cost taxpayers annually? Let's find out how much this costs. So the exact annual cost for NNSA's aerial measuring system isn't broken out separately in public budgets. It's part of the Nuclear Counterterrorism and Incident Response Program, funded at $536 million in fiscal year 2025, which supports NEST operations, including AMS. Okay, so it's going to be less than $500 million, but I'm sure it's probably at least $100 million, if not more than that. So, that's just illustrating that, millions and millions of dollars are spent on that area of the government, just waiting around for a nuclear accident to happen. So, all right. And we'll move to Department of War, CTO, and that is going to be research and engineering. So records are made to be broken. In a historic digital face-off, the U.S. Navy has taken an early lead over the U.S. Army, shattering AI usage records in the Department of War during the first 48 hours of deployment of GenAI.mil. I talked about this a couple days ago. I don't have access to it because I'm not in the military. It gives me this message: you have reached this page because you're not authorized to come in here. So be gone with you. But yeah, there are AI tools that are available to military service members, and the Department of War is encouraging everyone in the military to go to the website and sign up for it and check it out and, utilize the tools as needed. And they're obviously holding a contest, at least between the Army and the Navy, and the Navy's outpacing the Army within the first 48 hours, because this thing just came online just a couple days ago. So they're holding that competition. All right. In the U.S. Coast Guard Atlantic area, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter James returned to Charleston after a 92-day patrol, seizing over 46,500 pounds of narcotics. The crew made 9 interdictions and detained 33 suspected traffickers. Full details, and we've even got a video. And look at that. They detained them. They didn't blow them out of the water. They didn't shoot them while they're standing on top of the boat. Not that we even know if that's even true or not. Probably just Democrat propaganda, because that's what they're accusing the Southcom area of responsibility of doing down near Venezuela, like back in September. I remember when that happened in September. The Department of War said that there was a vessel that was blown up, and there were 2 survivors from that explosion, and they were taken into custody for detention, although their status was still in limbo because they're not a prisoner of war, and they're also out in international waters, so they weren't exactly sure how to handle their arrest. But at the time, they said that they were apprehended. And the Democrats, they're claiming that they were standing on top of the boat after it was blown up, and then the U.S. military just gunned them down, even though they had no weapons. They were waving their hands or whatever. So, of course, Democrats are demanding that they release the footage. But as far as the Coast Guard goes, they detained everyone that they came across. And we got this video. It's a bit of a short one. That is a lot of drugs. 3 months at sea, that's what they brought back. A lot of square groupers. A lot of square sailfish. A square tuna. United States Coast Guard, 1790. Okie dokie. And we also got this link, which we got the basics of it. I mean, I'm not familiar with this. This is on news.uscoastguard.mil, so I'm assuming this is related. And maybe this is footage from one of those apprehensions. Doesn't sound like there's going to be any audio. Oh yeah, here comes the cavalry. Damn, dude, look how low that helicopter is. That's crazy. You don't really hear from the Coast Guard too often. I mean, you hear plenty from the other branches of the military, but yeah, the Coast Guard, they don't get as much attention as they ought to. So the Coast Guard cutter James conducts counter-drug patrol in eastern Pacific Ocean. So they were out in the Pacific. North Charleston, South Carolina. Crew of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter James. They returned to their home port in Charleston on Wednesday following a 92-day deployment conducting counter-narcotics operations in the eastern Pacific in support of Operation Pacific Viper. During the patrol, the James crew interdicted over 46,500 pounds of narcotics valued at nearly $350 million. The James crew conducted 9 interdictions, detained 33 drug traffickers. The patrol focused on disrupting illegal narcotics smuggling in collaboration with international partners. The James crew worked alongside international partners including Costa Rica, Ecuador, Mexico, and Colombia. The collaboration included multiple partner nation transfers. To support maritime governance and strengthen international relations, the James crew transferred 22 detainees pierside in Manta, Ecuador, prior to a visit from the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Okay, so they must have been handed over to, I'm assuming, the authorities in Ecuador. So the James crew worked with the Costa Rican Coast Guard and National Police to transfer 2 Colombian detainees and offload approximately 9,500 pounds of cocaine in Golfito, Costa Rica. During the visit, James hosted Costa Rican Minister of Security Mario Zamora Cordero. So they just handed 9,500 pounds of drugs to the Costa Rican authorities, and they don't think that like not a single bit of that is going to find its way back into the system again. I don't know, man. I'm not saying that it's a corrupt country. I'm just saying they probably should have brought it all back here for destruction. So I'm exceptionally thankful and proud of this crew's dedication, said Captain Thomas Rodzewicz, commanding officer of the James. Time away from family and missed holidays is never a small sacrifice, but the crew's time and commitment to combating narco-terrorism and protecting our nation from illicit drugs crossing our borders are highlighted by the success of this patrol. So good times. And they got back just in time for Christmas. And we'll get back to the main list. And we got this from Veterans Affairs. Today's Memorial Minute honors Civil War Private Lewis Moore, who is buried at Annapolis National Cemetery. In 1862, he joined the 141st Infantry out of New York to fight for the Union. In 1863, he transferred to the Veteran Reserve Corps, where he served in hospitals to enable able-bodied soldiers back to service. A short time later, he fell ill with meningitis and passed away in 1864. Help honor his legacy by leaving a tribute on his memorial page at the following website on the va.gov. And of course, I will link that. This is the second one that I came across. The last one that I played, I believe that soldier was from the World War I era, and he, you know what? No, it wasn't. No, anyway, it was back in the early 20th century. I don't think it was World War II, but the first individual, he was awarded the Medal of Honor, and they did a video on him. So this is from It's like in the same vein. So
Hello.
Take a look.
Today we're at Annapolis National Cemetery, honoring the life and service of Private Lewis Moore. In 1862, he joined the 141st out of New York to fight for the Union. He was wounded, though, and in 1863 transferred to the Veteran Reserve Corps, which served in hospitals and other admin positions to enable more able-bodied fighters to get into the war. Unfortunately, during that service, he fell ill with meningitis and passed away in 1864. Private Moore served his country with honor and fought for us to reunify the country. We thank him for his service and his sacrifice. This has been your Memorial Minute.
Very cool, man. Short, sweet, informative. That's good they do that. I'm going to give that one a like. And if I come across more of those in the future, I'll definitely share it. The last one, they actually had photographs of him. So, I mean, this was during the Civil War, so they probably didn't have any photographs of him back then. Okay, U.S. DOT rapid response 12 hours ago. Trump administration launches bold air taxi push. So, air taxis, not too crazy about that idea, but welcome to the 21st century. And welcome to the paywall. The Washington Post, damn it. This is probably not going to work out either, but for lack of trying, might as well at least give it a try. They might let me in, or they might not, whatever. You know what? I'll just do that. Oh no, I don't want to create a free account. You know what? I'll do that on my own time. I'm going to leave this open, and I will do that. All right, well, I used the magic of the pause button, and I just went on ahead and signed up for him. I gave in, and that's no problem at all. I don't have the funds to actually pay for it. With all these websites, with mainstream media, just about all of them, they require you to pay for access. But it looks like the Washington Post, they're going to let me in without having to pay for it as long as I signed up. So I did that. And anyway, we can go ahead and read forward. The Trump administration is seeking to boost U.S. companies as they compete for dominance in the burgeoning air taxi sector with an eye toward showcasing the technology at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. Through executive orders, as well as a new effort to gather data that could help fast-track adoption of these aircraft, the administration has embraced the technology as part of its transportation agenda. I mean, look, dude, this is going to be transportation for the elites. You're not going to see the middle class taking, like, air taxis from one place to another. That ain't going to happen. At least not anytime soon, at least in my opinion. So in September, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced a pilot program aimed at exploring ways to integrate such technologies, including air taxis, formerly known as electric vertical takeoff and landing, or eVTOL aircraft, as well as hybrid electric and battery-powered planes into the nation's aviation system. For decades, the dream of flying above traffic-clogged roadways has been just that, a dream. But companies such as Archer Aviation, or Joby Aviation, and Beta Technologies are pitching their battery-powered aircraft, which take off and land vertically, as a way to revolutionize how people travel. Meanwhile, Wisk, a Boeing subsidiary, and Reliable Robotics are working on versions that can operate without a pilot, an innovation that could improve the economics of air service and cargo delivery to smaller and more isolated communities. Beta Technologies raised more than $1 billion when it went public on New York Stock Exchange last month, and investors have poured millions into the sector. However, questions remain about whether it will live up to the hype. A plan by German aviation company Volocopter for air taxis to transport spectators during the 2024 Paris Olympics fizzled, while other high-profile ventures have faltered. Lilium, a German eVTOL company, received an infusion of cash after filing for bankruptcy last year, but was unable to continue operations, filing for bankruptcy again this year. Experts say one key to financial success is making the leap from a novelty for the rich to a transportation option for the masses. Skeptics say the technology is still too unproven to merit government support. We're talking about spending taxpayer money on something that's not here yet, Rep. Scott Perry, Republican of Pennsylvania, said at a House hearing last week. The private sector is free to chase this enterprise. As I see it, it can't beat the physics of a 1960 helicopter. Well, that's a fair point, although the helicopter not only doesn't require a pilot, I'm sure it's probably a lot more energy reliant than whatever it is that they're looking with regard to these, especially those battery ones. All right, anyway, pilot program hopes the public may soon see how these new types of aircraft could change how people and goods move. December 19th is the deadline for submissions to the administration's Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Integration Pilot Program, or EIPP. Modeled after a similar initiative for drone operations launched during President Donald Trump's first term, it seeks to explore how quieter, cleaner, battery-powered aircraft that take off and land, like helicopters, could transform aviation. At least 5 applicants will be chosen. This program represents the launch of a new era of American aviation, said Greg Bowles, Chief Policy Officer at Joby Aviation, which has been working for more than a decade to bring its aircraft to market. He predicted that it will introduce Joby aircraft into the skies over major U.S. cities starting next year. Sapin Shah, Senior Director of Portfolio Management for Advanced Air Mobility at Honeywell Aerospace, says he expects significant interest from state and local governments that are eager to explore how these new types of planes could benefit their residents. The data collected from the pilot program will offer participants an early look at how these aircraft operate in real-world conditions and what changes will be needed to incorporate them into existing transportation systems, he said. And it looks like it goes on there for quite a ways, but I got enough there to get you started. If you want to finish off that article, I will have that linked down below if you want to take a look and finish that one up. So Armed Services GOP, happy Army-Navy weekend to all who celebrate. Our veteran House GOP members surely are in the spirit. Some have family participating. Others are more prejudiced than others, and one, well, we don't know how he got in there. Go Army, go Navy. And HASC Republicans, Armed Services GOP, wish everyone participating tomorrow a safe game and best wishes. And we've got a video to accompany.
Go Navy, beat Army.
Go Army, beat Navy. No mercy.
Go Army. My grandson is the equipment manager on the West Point team.
With a son graduating from Annapolis, I gotta say, go Navy.
As a former Navy pilot, the wife of a Navy pilot, and the mom to a Navy pilot, go Navy, beat Army, just like last year.
Navy, if you get lost, remember Guam's in the middle of the Pacific and we'll point you in the right direction.
People ask me often, they say, Derek, why is the Navy so much better than the Army? We can deploy to combat with an ice cream machine around the world. And what do you guys have? You have a foxhole.
Go Marine Corps, beat Army, Semper Fi. My advice to the folks playing in the Army-Navy game is whoever gets air superiority will win. Aim high, fly, fight, and win.
All right, man. It's going to be intense. Well, there you have it. Yeah, my family, they're Air Force. My grandfather, he was in the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force. My brother's still in the Air Force. He's coming up on 17 years, I think. And he works in D.C., actually. So anyway, moving on to General Ken Wilsbach. The B-52 will continue to serve as an unmatched symbol of U.S. air power. With these radar modification upgrades, the aircraft will remain ready to execute our nation's deterrence and strike missions for decades. So the B-52 Stratofortress going to be around for decades to come, according to them. And this is from the Air Force, AF.mil, speak of the devil. So Arlington, Virginia, a B-52 Stratofortress has completed its ferry flight from the Boeing Company's San Antonio facility to Edwards Air Force Base, California, following the installation of a new modernized radar system as part of the B-52 radar modernization program. This milestone marks a significant step forward in the aircraft's ongoing modernization efforts to ensure it remains a critical component of the U.S. Air Force's conventional and nuclear long-range strike capabilities. A crew from the 49th Test Evaluation Squadron at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana and the 419th Flight Test Squadron at Edwards Air Force Base, California, transferred the aircraft from Boeing's facility on December 8th. The test team will execute ground and flight test activities on the aircraft throughout 2026 to enable a production decision later in the year. The modern Active Electronically Scanned Air Array, or AESA radar system, replaces the aircraft's antiquated and failing legacy radar, providing an upgraded all-weather navigation and targeting capability for the 65-year-old strategic bomber to ensure its future effectiveness. The AESA radar, developed by Raytheon Technologies and integrated into the B-52 by Boeing, follows successful radar upgrades on the U.S. Air Force's F-15 and the U.S. Navy F-A-18, and will bring a similar level of capability and maintainability to the venerable B-52. The ferry flight of this upgraded B-52 marks an important moment in our efforts to modernize the bomber force, said Secretary of the Air Force Troy Mink. This radar modernization ensures that the B-52 will continue to serve as a cornerstone of American air power well into the future. We are committed to extending the life of this vital platform, allowing it to operate alongside next-generation fighter and bomber aircraft. So it looks like that is, I'm assuming the radar that they're speaking of that they have installed into the B-52. And there's an image of it taken off. And yeah, just a little bit more reading material there. And we'll move on to the next. DOW Rapid Response. Welcome to the official home of U.S. Space Command. And we're going to check this
Space
out.
Command's official move and marks the home
The
of
official
the command's
move?
permanent headquarters
US
here
Space
at
Command.
Redstone Arsenal, Alabama.
Heading to Alabama.
Federal Center of Excellence. Now we will start the countdown at 3, and at the 0 mark, unveil the sign. Got it? All right. All together, please. 3, 2, 1. Woo!
U.S. Spacecom. All right, and we got more. We got more to this. So Tammy Radebach, and let's see who she is with the Department of War, Deputy Assistant to the Secretary of War. And so Pete Hegseth takes part in the sign unveiling at the future location of the U.S. Spacecom headquarters in Huntsville, which we already got that one. So we'll move on to this one. DOW Rapid Response, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, full remarks at the sign unveiling ceremony for U.S. Space Command in Huntsville, Alabama.
Thank you very much. It's a blessing and an honor to be here. I want to say congratulations to Alabama, congratulations to Huntsville, congratulations to Redstone Arsenal, congratulations to this entire delegation. The leadership from the chairman to the delegation, Senator Britt, mayor, governor, coach, senator, whatever your title is. Congratulations. You guys represent your state extremely well. And I also want to pass my congratulations and thanks from President Trump. He wanted me to pass the message on Space Command to Alabama. Welcome home. It's been mentioned, and it's true, and I won't belabor it, but President Trump has understood the importance of the space domain from the beginning, from his first term, and you laid it out well, Mr. Chairman. From recognizing the importance and the need for a Space Force, to the recognition of reestablishing Spacecom, to commissioning the study to look into it, to choosing this place, to commissioning another study, to then ensuring in his second term, once again, the Air Force Secretary made the right choice, recommended to me, recommended to the President, that this is the place to continue to establish space dominance right here in Alabama. And when you look at what we're doing at the Department of War, you know, we are defending the homeland and the hemisphere. We're deterring adversaries. We're working with our allies to burden share and shift those burdens. We're looking at rebuilding the defense industrial base, which is what we're doing right here. We're reviving the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, reestablishing deterrence. And then when you look at what President Trump's doing, it's America first, peace through strength, and then the old one that fits just perfect, common sense. It is common sense that this is precisely where Space Command should be. It is common sense that we need to move rapidly and expeditiously, and we will. Colonel, you're right. It normally takes prayers to be on time and under budget. Just no doubt. But as General Whiting knows,
day and age.
He met with us at the Pentagon just a few weeks ago. We are deadly serious in committing to cutting every piece of red tape and bureaucracy to get this headquarters established as quickly as humanly possible.
Shouldn't take more than a year to build, but
symbolic,
of course
but
it will.
It's a recognition of a full speed ahead, full steam motion to ensure that we break ground, we move, we build, we move people, we move capabilities right where it should be as quickly as possible. Because first it was he who controls the skies, now it's he who controls the space domain, understands what the future
much
of warfare
staffing they're gonna have
will
there.
look like, and who maintains that dominance. Your delegation has understood that.
Incredible
President
for
Trump
local business.
Understands that. We are completely committed to it at every level, and that's why I'm here today. Because the quicker we establish this, the more robust the capabilities are, the more likely we are able to deter the next conflict, and if necessary, stand prepared to overwhelmingly defeat our enemies, which is the responsibility of the War Department, which is what the House Armed Services Committee and the other committees enable us to do, and we're committed to delivering it. So God bless you all. God bless this great state. And I'm not saying anything about college football teams.
Yeah, Yeah, man. Good news. Good old Huntsville, Alabama. I went to space camp there, like back in 8th grade. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking into relocating to a whole new area in the country, and if you're looking into a brick and mortar store or a restaurant or something like that, I mean, I don't know like where exactly it is in Huntsville, but I don't know, man, something to look into. I'm sure it's going to employ thousands of people. I mean, it's going to be their central headquarters, isn't it? Yeah, U.S. Space Command. So, all right, rolling on to U.S. Department of Energy, and AI is going nuclear at INL, and INL is the Idaho National Lab. Secretary Wright, this is ground zero for the nuclear renaissance that the Trump administration is passionate to make happen. It's been talked about for 20 years, but it's actually happening now. And real quick, I'm going to grab that. That's on localnews8.com. And let's see, we got to put this up. From Secretary of Energy supports quadrupling U.S. nuclear power generation in Idaho National Lab visit. And this is in Arco, Idaho. U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright touted the Trump administration's efforts to unleash the next American nuclear renaissance, affirming his support for expanding America's nuclear energy capacity fourfold in the next 25 years, from 100 gigawatts in 2025 to 400 gigawatts by 2050, during his tour of Idaho National Laboratory on Monday. We have tremendous interest right now, private businesses and private capital to build energy infrastructure, and most of that money is going to flow to natural gas and nuclear, Wright said. But anything that adds affordable, secure, reliable electricity, we're all for. I believe there's 10 nuclear facilities that they're looking to break ground on currently. About 20% of America's energy is currently generated by 94 nuclear reactors in the United States. He said, President Trump's target is aggressive and ambitious. But I wouldn't bet against it, Wright said. I wouldn't bet against that target being achieved. I think it's going to happen. Monday marked Wright's final stop on a string of visits to all 17 national laboratories in the U.S. Department of Energy. This is ground zero for the nuclear renaissance that the Trump administration is passionate to make happen. It's been talked about for 20 years, but it's actually happening now, Secretary Wright said. And Secretary Wright toured the Materials and Fuels Complex, MFC, west of Idaho Falls. He was joined by Governor Brad Little, Representative Mike Simpson, Assistant Secretary of Nuclear Energy Theodore Ted Garish, and INL Director John Wagner. We need to address all avenues of the nuclear supply chain, the technology, the permitting of reactors, fuel at the end of life, he continued. Idaho National Lab, as I said, this is where commercial nuclear power started, and this is where that nuclear renaissance is starting, and it is essential to those efforts. In a press conference afterward, Secretary Wright also highlighted the Department of Energy's goal to construct and have multiple reactors critical by July 4th of next year. Man, that is really ambitious. I really would like to see that happen. Nuclear company Radiant is set to begin testing a Kaleidos microreactor inside the INL's newly repurposed demonstration of microreactor experiments DOME facility in April, located inside the iconic former experimental breeder Reactor 2 containment shell. Wagner said the project is on track to meet that deadline and achieve criticality by America's 250th birthday next year. The Department of Energy also announced Monday that it is providing $11 million in funding spent between 5 corporations to create new updated packages to transport high-assay, low-enriched uranium, or HALEU. The efforts are designed to bolster America's nuclear supply chain by providing accessible HALEU fuel to operating reactors. AI and nuclear atomic match. Finally, Governor Brad Little highlighted tech companies' interest in pairing data centers with small modular reactors to meet their high energy demands. I love those small modular nuclear reactors they're talking about. We're blessed that people that are interested in AI are willing to upfront some of the cost, he remarked. Somebody is going to do this in the world, and somebody is maybe going to be the Chinese if we don't do it right here. We've got to win the battle on where the next generation of power comes from. Local News 8 will provide continuing coverage, Secretary Wright's visit, and the confluence of AI nuclear technology tomorrow. And there's an image. Oh yeah, that's that dome that they were talking about in the article. And that's also INL Director John Wagner on the left, for Secretary Chris Wright on the right. And there you have it. Speaking of nuclear, actually speaking of uranium, that actually just got me thinking. I got a Christmas gift for my daughter. It's uranium glass. You know, like back in the day, I think most of it's vintage these days. I don't know if they're still making uranium glass or not, but it used to be really popular, like going all the way back to the Victorian age. And I bought a couple of pieces that I saw at a local antique shop, and I noticed that they glowed under blacklight, which I know it's common knowledge. I've known about that for a little while, but it never occurred to me to actually look into getting a couple of those pieces. But my daughter, she's got black lights in her room. She's always liked black lights. I was like, you know what? She doesn't. I've never had uranium glass before, so I actually got it. I held it under a black light. These things glow really bright. I've got them on my desk right now, so it's really cool. So yeah, man, uranium glass. I don't think it's. You know, I wouldn't drink out of it or anything. Like one's a pitcher, like a miniature pitcher, and another one looks like it's like kind of like a vase, something like that. But yeah, pretty cool, man. Uranium glass. All right, Congressman Troy Downing came home with some hardware from the White House. You know what that means. President Trump just signed my bill to roll back restrictions on coal leasing in the Powder River Basin into law. Couldn't be more appreciative of his leadership to unleash made in Montana energy. There you go. He's got the president's pin that he used to sign it with. And we have Secretary Kennedy. This is the fulfillment of a promise we made in the Maha Report. The promise to put farmers at the center of the Make America Healthy Again agenda.
This is the fulfillment of a promise that we made in the Maha Report, which we released 2.5 months ago. There's 120 recommendations for how to transition, how to eliminate the chronic disease epidemic and transition to a healthier America. And among those promises, among the recommendations of the report, farmers who are dependent on chemical and fertilizer inputs, to give them an off-ramp where they can transition to a model that emphasizes soil health, and with soil health comes nutrient density. Without coercion, through voluntary action, to give them good incentives to do well by doing good for themselves, for our children, and for the country. I'm very, very happy to have as a partner in this endeavor Brooke Rollins. I've been working on farm issues for 30 years. And this is the first USDA secretary who I believe is really committed to giving us, we already have the healthiest food supply in the world, to making a food supply that's even healthier, that's going to sustain, again, a transition to a much healthier America for our children. I also want to thank these farmers who are inspiring. And they're inspiring to the farm community, to all of us who care about good health, about sustainability on the farm, about water retention, about soil retention, about the health of farmers themselves who are concerned about the health of their children from too many chemicals on the land. And they provided us models for how to do this and how to do it in a way that vertically integrates, that preserves profit margins, and that dramatically reduces inputs.
Yeah, man, it's all good news. Sounds all good to me. And, you know, getting America healthy, that's also going to bring down health insurance too. That's a fact. All right, CBP, a first by none other than our great team of agriculture specialists. CBP Director of Field Operations, Marty C. Raybon. First in nation find. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, agriculture specialists at Detroit Metro Airport intercepted a potentially destructive bark beetle species, an exotic pest never seen before at a U.S. port of entry. And it's only a few millimeters in length, man. Those things are tiny. And they found it in there. And yeah, they've got the news release. This reminds me of citrus greening. And like I've lived in Florida for over 20 years now. And I remember back in 2005, citrus greening, it was all over the news. And actually, it still remains in the news, really. But citrus greening, that pest, somehow found its way into the U.S., probably from some asshole like this who snuck it in, or maybe it was just like it just clung on to, I don't know, clothing or something. I have no idea. However it did, it got into the country somehow, and it wiped out 90% of Florida's citrus industry, like completely wiped it out. Like it's like night and day. It's like almost like the citrus industry almost doesn't even exist here anymore, and it's really sad. It's just like just absolutely just devastating. So let me see. All right, there it is. I don't know why they pop up on different parts of the browser, but anyway, CBP intercepts first in nation bark beetle in Detroit, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection agriculture specialists made a first in nation interception of a potentially destructive bark beetle species in bark from the Ivory Coast last February. Last February? They're just now bringing this up? So the approximately 3-millimeter beetle was found within a partially dry bark brought for medicinal purposes during a routine inspection of a passenger at Detroit Metropolitan Airport in transit to Texas. Local CBP officials identified this as the Afrotropical genus Sonic-Salon, while local U.S. Department of Agriculture officials were able to further identify it as the Sonic-Salon spinifer eggers, which was confirmed on October 16th. According to a USDA database records, this species has never been intercepted at a U.S. port of entry. The beetle and prohibited bark were seized by CBP for further analysis, and the passenger was released without further incident. This first-time bark beetle interception is significant because many species are tree-destroying pests, says Port Director Fadia Pastelong. This type of discovery highlights the exceptional work of our CBP agriculture specialists. Unlike many bark beetle species, which tunnel beneath bark and excavate galleries for their larvae, the Sonic-Salon tunnel and breed within bark layers. While research on this type of bark beetle is limited, several of the known species are reported to feed on fig and olive trees. Therefore, there is potential for this pest to cause significant agriculture and economic damage in regions that grow them, such as in Texas. Big threats can come in small packages, and our agriculture specialists work diligently to protect our agriculture and natural resources against dangers of all shapes and sizes, says Director of Field Operations Marty C. Raybon. Travelers can help safeguard American agriculture and our natural resources by declaring all agriculture items. Visit our travel page to learn more. Yep, definitely. And that's why, like some people would be like, well, what do you mean I can't bring like a few oranges and a couple bananas and a pineapple back from my vacation to Costa Rica? Like, what's the matter with you? Like, it's just freaking fruit. Well, that would be why, because there could be an invasive species that's buried inside whatever it is you're trying to bring in. Okay, so heading on to the next thing. I think I'm getting close to the end here. So U.S. Census Bureau, total U.S. business applications were at 535,041 in the month of November this year, which is up 7.1% from October, from just the month before. And you can explore new data from September, October, and November on census.gov. And here's an image of the business applications released on December 12th today, and the next release is slated for January 14th of next year. So yeah, 535,041 units current, and the difference is up 7.1%. So that's looking pretty good. Look at that, man. It's on the upswing. So that's good, man. Business applications. Now, I know the long-term statistics are never very good with businesses, especially small businesses. I think it's like 85% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years, and 85% of those who succeed after 5 years end up failing within 10 years. But still, I mean, only the strong shall survive, but you'll never know unless you at least take the plunge. You got to take the risk and try to realize your dream. Okay, the White House. Step inside the White House this Christmas. Class is back. Let's check this out. Christmas season. With Legos. That's cool.
But it's like crazy.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing images of that. I think Melania was working on putting that together. A bunch of butterflies around a Christmas tree. It's pretty unique. Okay, U.S. Department of the Interior. This week, Interior had the first in-person offshore lease sale in nearly a decade, generating $300 million, a major win for American energy. Plus, we're boosting national defense with the land transfer to the U.S. Navy and celebrated the holiday season at a Christmas party with Secretary Burgum. Look at that.
This is Inside Interior. This week, for the first time in nearly a decade, the Department of the Interior proudly held an in-person offshore lease sale in the Gulf of America. That sale generated nearly $280 million, a powerful milestone in restoring American energy dominance. This was not just any lease sale. It was the first offshore oil and gas lease sale required under President Trump's Working Families tax cut, and a landmark step in securing our nation's energy future. This comes on the heels of our gas prices plunging to a multi-year low, and they're still trending lower, which means more money back in your wallet this holiday season. We also took decisive action to strengthen our national defense. The Department of the Interior is transferring jurisdiction of 760 acres of public land in California to the Department of the Navy. For the next 3 years, this land will serve as a national defense area, supporting ongoing border security operations and keeping America safe. Secretary Burgum also joined Fox this week to discuss, in part, how high electricity prices have nothing to do with artificial intelligence. They have everything to do with unaffordable, unreliable, and intermittent energy policies.
Renewable energy.
Newsflash, there is no correlation between data centers growing in states and higher electric prices. In fact, in many states, it's actually the opposite. States like Texas, who've added over 100 data centers in the last 5 years, have seen electric prices go down. North Dakota's had the biggest increase in electricity demand in the last 5 years of any state in the country on a percentage basis, and electric prices are among the absolute lowest in the country.
And
there's a lot of these companies, these data centers, they're self-sufficient with their energy production. They actually provide their own power stations, and those small modular nuclear reactors that they're going to start rolling off the assembly line. Oh shit! In the next couple of years, they're going to be placed at these data centers that are currently under construction. Google, one of those companies that had already pre-purchased some of those modular reactors, and they're going to be off-grid. In fact, they're going to be generating a surplus of electricity. At least that's what they're estimating. And that surplus energy will be placed back into the electric grid, which should lower prices for the surrounding community.
We ended the week in the best way possible with cookies and cocoa at our annual Christmas party with Secretary Burgum. Thanks to all who were able to attend. That's all for this week's Inside Interior.
That's all we got, Inside Interior. I've never seen them do that before. I've seen other departments show their summary of what happened over the week, but that's the first one I've seen from the Interior. All right, this is from Bureau of Land Management. And what else do they have that with? National. Oh, just national. Okay. So yeah, Bureau of Land Management. On the first day of public lands, BLM gave to us Christmas tree permits. I'm not going to sing it. We invite you to venture out and cut down your own Christmas tree on public lands. For the 2025-26 winter season, we're offering permits for only $1 per tree. So if you live anywhere near public lands, you can go cut down your own Christmas tree for $1. And you can learn more at that link, which you can find below. Let me just see what it starts with, because I know on YouTube in the descriptions, they don't show you the entire link. They only show you like the first part of it. But it's going to be on blm.gov, and I'm sure that's going to be the only one down there. And we've got like 7 seconds of a video. Very small tree that she cut down. And a little bit bigger of a tree. Average size Christmas tree. But still, man, that's pretty cool. It's only $1. I mean, we're getting... You know, it's already almost halfway through the month, so we're getting pretty close to the end with regard to finding your Christmas tree. I mean, I think pretty much most people probably have already put theirs up by now. Okay, so National Agriculture Statistics Service. Celebrate the season with poinsettias. U.S. growers sold 35,661,000 potted poinsettia plants valued at $182 million in 2023. And I'm sure the number has gone up since then. And there you go, the poinsettia farm. Very, very cool. And those things, they tend to last, man. If you keep watering them, you give them a decent amount of sunlight. I mean, they'll grow all year. Okay, NASA. He's red for an amazing reason. And you know what this means when I'm at NASA. It means I'm at the end of the video. So this dwarf galaxy named Markarian 178 has a mostly blue hue. I don't know if you can notice that. But a collection of rare massive stars gives the galaxy glowing patches of red near the center. Learn more about this NASA Hubble image at go.nasa.gov. And that's probably going to be the only go.nasa.gov link there. And from LEO to deep space, NASA keeps America leading on every frontier, from Bethany Stevens, which she is the NASA comms spokeswoman. And let's see, we've got the list of Rook Isaacman, Jared Isaacman, advances to the Senate floor. I mean, that's his X-handle name, you know, at Rook Isaacman. And we've got Space Station. Their change of command just occurred this week. And Johnny Kim, USA, who was on the International Space Station, he returned home this week, landed in, I believe it was in Russia. And improving aviation safety, and also NASA's Webb Space Telescope discovers super Earth's atmosphere, which I talked about just last night. So let's take a look at this.
New insights from the James Webb Space Telescope, next-generation aviation technology, and a crew handoff aboard the International Space Station. NASA teams have been busy innovating flight and pursuing discovery this week. Let's get into it in this week's NASA Minute. On Monday, a bipartisan vote in the Senate Commerce Committee advanced Jared Isaacman's nomination to serve as President Trump's NASA administrator to the full Senate for consideration. On Sunday, the entire International Space Station crew took part in the change of command ceremony as NASA astronaut Mike Fink was handed the symbolic key representing command of the orbital complex. On Monday, NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and his 2 Roscosmos crewmates began the process of returning to Earth. Later that evening, after bidding farewell to the station, the trio separated from the space station, re-entered the atmosphere, and safely returned aboard a Soyuz early on Tuesday morning. This crew had been in space for 245 days, where Johnny Kim helped advance scientific discovery and technological innovation in the orbital laboratory. Welcome home, Johnny. NASA and Boeing recently took to the skies to test next-generation data communications designed to make air travel safer and more efficient. Using NASA-developed technology, these flight tests improved how controllers can predict and track a plane's path, especially when weather or turbulence forces a course change. As a result, flight management will be smarter, landings will be smoother, and delays will decrease for travelers around the world.
Well, that sounds
And
nice.
finally, researchers using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope have found the strongest evidence yet of an atmosphere around a rocky planet beyond our solar system. The ultra-hot super-Earth, known as TOI 561b, appears to be wrapped in a dense layer of gas above a global ocean of magma, a discovery that helps explain the planet's surprisingly low density. These findings challenge our previous understanding of small, close-orbiting worlds and mark another step forward as NASA continues to lead humanity's exploration of the universe, from the moon to Mars and far beyond. From Earth's atmosphere to the farthest corners of the universe, NASA continues to drive exploration forward and inspire the next generation of explorers. That's a wrap on your NASA Minute. See you next week.
Oh yeah, see you next week, and that'll do it for this episode. Matter of fact, I think every single episode I did this week was over 2 hours long. I always try to keep the episodes close to an hour and a half, and I try not to go over 2 hours, but that's just the way it worked out this week. There's a lot to go through this week, man. It was a busy week. Busy week in the swamp. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the daily updates with the goings-on inside the swamp. I do the swamp Monday through Friday, and the videos usually post around 11 o'clock. It's going to be a little later tonight. It's been a little later than usual all week because, again, the show went a lot longer than I expected to, but that's all right. But I'll be dropping a new show every evening, Monday through Friday, and covering everyone in it, in the swamp, the politicians, the agencies, the bureaucrats, bureaucracies, everything happening in the swamp. And I also post the daily episodes on X, so feel free to comment over there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night and a fantastic weekend, and God bless America.